Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live in the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
First, we start the show with a major congratulations. Tim Corbin, 1,000 victories as a baseball coach in his career. Yesterday, Vanderbilt with the big win. Tim Corbin, 1,000. You realize that is 4 years, basically, worth of winning games. It's really actually more like 3 years worth of, where every single day you wake up and you win a baseball game. 1,000 victories. Unbelievable for Tim Corbin. Congratulations to him. So, we will be giving away Predators tickets for tomorrow night's game against the Buffalo Sabres. We'll do what we did the other day when we gave away the tickets for the Canadiens, in which we will have a keyword. And then when it's time to call that keyword later in the show, you will have to call Ian and give him the keyword. And we'll give you the keyword later this hour. And then we will tell you when to call later in the show. So, got to listen to the show. Sorry about it. So I want to start on last night's game and then I think kind of the bigger picture. We'll start with last night. Yesterday, after the game was over and the Predators lost that horrendous Montreal team that ended that great streak, people were mad. I mean, they lose. And first of all, the Predators didn't play their best game. And it also took one of the weirdest bounces I have ever seen in the decade or so that I've covered the NHL. The weirdest bounce I've ever seen, plus a high stick, a high stick call that, I mean, it was the right call, but a goal coming off the board in order for Montreal to win in overtime by the tiniest margin, and you still got a point. And St. Louis still lost. And people on Twitter were, oh, God, we lost that terrible Montreal team. And I'm like, 3 weeks ago, you guys didn't even care. Some of you just got into it because the team's good. Then they finally lose a game and you get upset about it. Look, this is the NHL. Nobody goes 82-0. So did I like the fact that they lost yesterday? No. Did I think that when they had a 2-0 lead that they were going to win? Absolutely. Did I see the puck, the bad bounce they got, and think to myself, oh, my God, this is what losers say when we say, oh, the puck didn't bounce their way. But, I mean, Rand Carthon needs to see that puck because that is a puck that did not bounce their way. And they lost. And it happens. And if you get into the playoffs, you'll lose too. And then you've got to regroup and you've got to play better. So tomorrow, I expect to see a more focused, more energized Predators team go out, take the ice against Buffalo, take care of business, and keep on their way into the trade deadline. And I know people are going to say, oh, no, Jared, you know that there were bad signs. They only got production out of the first line last night. You're not going to win them all. It's okay. If you promise me that for every 8 that they win, they'll lose 1, I'll take it, and so will you. So that's my thoughts on the game last night. Incredibly entertaining game, by the way. Now, the deadline is heating up, and it is absolutely getting serious. I mean, today I was following all the happenings, and we've got Colorado makes a big move, and Edmonton makes a big move, and the Western Conference is absolutely loading up. In the East, Boston, Tampa, the Rangers. Now, Florida did make a move, but for the most part, the East has stayed kind of quiet. And so the question now for me is, what is Barry Trotz going to do? Which way are the Predators going to go? And here's the great part about the next 48 hours or so for Barry Trotz. And that is that he has options. Barry Trotz can go in any direction he wants. And he gave himself this flexibility by the way that he built this team. The Tennessee Titans, on the other hand, they don't have options. They put themselves in this corner where there are no left tackles in free agency. And so no matter how good Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze or whomever is at number 7, the Titans most likely have to take a left tackle because that's the only place that they can go get a left tackle. Sorry, but they don't have options. Barry has options. Barry can trade pieces away. Philadelphia just picked up a first-round pick for a defenseman that I have never heard of. Ian, should I have heard of this guy?
I guess not.
Okay, a first-round pick for a guy I've never heard of. Now, they took on Ryan Johansson's contract in exchange and then immediately waived Johansson, so that was a pure salary dump. But guess what? Barry Trotz of what the original Predators draft picks, plus he's got draft capital from everybody else for the deals that he made last year. So if Barry wants to add, Barry could in theory add. If there's a player out there Barry wants to get, he could do it. If Barry wants to do half of what Philadelphia just did, where they take on a contract and they either waive it or they retain it and they just pass on through somebody to somebody else, he can do it. If he wants to stand pat because he's got a decent team and he's got an AHL team that just won 19 games in a row, that's got a goalie, it's got defensemen, it's got a couple of young forwards that have played here in the NHL, he can do it. He's got options to do whatever he wants. Everybody else is feeling the anxiety. Everybody else is telling Barry what he has to do. Last night after they lost, Jared, they need to be sellers. Did you see the move that was made? These picks, we need those picks. They need to sell. They couldn't beat Montreal. Some people are saying they need to be buyers. Like, it's great that they're winning with this group, but you're not going to go into the playoffs with Mark Jankowski as your second-line center. So, I mean, you gotta do something, or at least on your second line. I guess Novak's the center of that line. But you got to do something, right? And I think Barry is just sitting right there in the middle as the prices go up for, again, players I've never heard of. First-round picks and contracts being taken, and there's Carrier and Trennan and Lankinen and UFAs and guys he could deal that would have some value. And Barry can truly do whatever he wants. And he even told us yesterday, for everybody that wants to hear something come out of that man's mouth that says, we are for sure buying, we are for sure selling, we are for sure taking on contracts, we are for sure. Barry yesterday said that nothing is for sure, but that he is listening on everything.
You have to listen. You have to see what the needs are. And there's certain teams that are expected to go all the way, and they're looking for a defenseman. They're looking for a winger or a centerman. And the pressure to get that they feel will get them over the hump, it gets pretty, I'll say, intense for that team and that individual. And then all of a sudden you get a first, and then you got to go, I got it. I'll take that first, and I just got to suck it up, and we'll.
So no matter how much this team's winning, if somebody knocks your socks off on something, from a business standpoint, you got to do it for the 25, 26, 27 Predators.
Yeah, I think I do. I think that would be fair.
Okay, he's listening on everything. If there's a deal he likes, he's going to make it. He said yesterday on the program, when it comes to adding guys on the trade market, I think to myself, is this guy better than Parsonen? Is this guy better than Tomasino? So if I deal a first-round pick in order to bring somebody in here and disrupt the lines and disrupt the chemistry, and we have an injury and I got to plug somebody in, is that guy a plug-in player? Not a headliner, but a plug-in player. We're not talking about Jake Gensel here. Is that guy better than Tomasino or Parsonen? Is that guy better than Spencer Stastny at Milwaukee? And we know that the Predators don't need help in net. And then when it comes to, hey, Carrier, they might be working out a deal. Barry said yesterday it's a possibility. And at the same time, he just said, these GMs out here, they're getting desperate. I mean, Colorado is desperate, right? They got knocked out by Seattle in the playoffs last year. They didn't like it. They came into Bridgestone Arena, and I thought clearly got beaten on Saturday night, and they said, okay, we got to change. And they shipped out not only Johansson and his contract, but they shipped out Bowen Byram, who was their lottery pick that they got in exchange for that Fakakta, Matt Duchene, Kyle Turris trade. And they shipped his ass out of there to Buffalo. He's going to be playing the Predators tomorrow night because they went and got forward help. I mean, Colorado has remade their team in the last 3 hours. So Barry sees around the league these general managers that are saying to themselves, if I don't make a playoff run this year, if I don't have one, I might not be making these picks. So what do I care about these picks? And if they're desperate and the defense market starts to thin out, and we've seen Tanev gone, and we've seen Labushkin gone, and we see this guy go, and Monta went yesterday, and whatever, we see all these guys going off, somebody might pick up the phone, call Barry Trotz, and say, I need Carrier. I need him. And then Barry's going to trade him. Because, again, as Barry just said to me yesterday, no matter how much this team's winning, he's listening on everything, and he has the option to do whatever he thinks is in the best interest of the Predators. And not only did Barry put himself in this position, but I think we have to understand you're not always going to be in this situation. Sometimes there's going to be a hole on your roster, and you are going to have to fill it. Sometimes you're not going to be a first-year general manager and a first-year head coach and go into the season with no expectations, and everybody, whatever they do positive, everybody will give them a pat on the back and a gold star. That won't happen every year. But where they sit right now, they have options. So you want them to buy, or you want them to sell, or you want them to stand pat. And I'll be honest with you, where I sit here, like I'm saying, hey, don't need any new players. Don't need any rentals. I hate rentals. You know that. Don't need any rentals. Don't need to give up any picks. But I don't necessarily need to dump Trenton or need to dump Carrier or need to dump Lincoln. And I don't need to dump any of those guys. I'm fine with standing pat. But again, I don't know what's out there. And neither do you. So where Barry Trotz sits, he's got the ability that if somebody really says, like, hey, we'll give you a first for Carrier, he'll do it. And then he'll call Stasny up. And that's the option that he gave himself. If he trades away Carrier, and again, this goes back to having options. If he trades away Carrier, he's not going to be stuck with a, oh my God, what do we do on defense now? He's got his answer. So this is a very, very exciting time for the Nashville Predators because not only are they winning, not only are they playing good hockey, and I know they lost yesterday, but they still got a point, but they, in this entire trade deadline, they are sitting pretty from the standpoint that they're going to make the playoffs, but they have every option available to them. And I think that is exciting. And this is what's going to define whether or not Barry Trotz makes it as the general manager of the Predators. There's two things. You know what? We'll hit the two things on the other side. 615-737-1025. Your thoughts. I'll hit the two things that Barry Trotz's got to do. In fact, Ian, I'm going to write it down right now so that I don't forget.
Good idea.
The two things, because, sometimes, I think was it this week or last week where I promised I'd tell a story on the other side, and then we forgot what the story was. So I write down two things right now. We'll do that on the other side, and then we'll do your phones. Your reaction to last night, the trade deadline, it's all out there. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Where do you think you are with Carrier and Trennan as pending UFAs? Should we expect more signings to come here, or is Novak it?
Well, I think we're going to try. I think that's we are trying. I think that's the answer can only come from their representatives. There's been some offers made, and from that standpoint, we'll just have to play a little bit of chicken and the egg type of thing. They're wanting to know where we are going forward. They'll make an offer, we make an offer, counter offer, and we're through that all process. So there's a certain point where that's it for me. I gotta stop. I gotta hold a line for certain guys, and if they want to cross the line, then we have to maybe make change. At the same time, we can hang on to those guys and use those guys as free agents.
Hey, that was Barry Trotz on our show yesterday. And again, as I told you, he has every option that is open to him. Every single option. So if, say, somebody calls and offers a first-round pick for Carrier, I mean, hey, I know we're talking about working out a 4-year deal, but Johnny will be calling you with information about, your trip to the airport because we are shipping you off to the Rangers. Like, that's going to happen. Like, that's just a reality. And if there's a player that's out there that perhaps a team, is a pending UFA and a team is asking for a first-round pick on that guy today, but on Friday, right before the deadline, they want to move him so they'll just do it the way you got Wayne Simmons, then I think Barry will be open to adding that player. So he's got every option. Now, I said there were two things that were going to define how Barry Trotz will perform as the general manager of the Nashville Predators, whether or not he will be successful. Now, look, I love the fact that Barry Trotz comes on our show every Tuesday, and he sits down and we keep it real, right? We ask, again, important questions. We clarify, so we ask, and if Barry leaves it a little open-ended, I say, oh, so wait a minute. So you, even if you're winning, you would still have to, I'd have to listen. Okay. And that is more to do with Barry than it is to do with me, because Barry's the one who chooses to be open, unlike 99.9% of the coaches and general managers out there. And I do think that has a positive impact on the fan base, because the fan base understands where Barry's coming from, so that when he makes a decision, at least I feel like I know where Barry is coming from. But when he makes a decision, even if it doesn't work, we can see how they got there. And then he explains on the front end, why he was thinking what he was thinking. And I appreciate that. But that's not going to be what defines him as a general manager, even though it may buy him a little extra time and grace with the fan base. The two things that are going to define Barry Trotz, the first is asset management in times like this. What's the defense of the Nashville Predators going to look like 2 years from now? Yossi will be here. Ryan McDonough probably won't be, anymore, or if he is, he'll be an old grandpa on the third pair. Will Fabro be here? 3 years from now, 2 years from now, will Dante Fabro or Alexander Carrier, will those guys be here? Will Spencer Stasny be here? Right? They're going to bring him up someday from Milwaukee. Does Barry know, hey, this kid is not just going to make it, but he's going to be a Matthias Ekholm-like player for this team for 5, 6, 7 years? What about Tanner Molendyke, who they drafted in the first round? That management. So Barry goes into this saying, hey, 3 years from now, I'm not going to have Alexander Carrier on this team. Even if I ink him to an extension this offseason, there won't be a spot for him in 3 years. So what am I going to do? And the answer is, okay, then I trade him. And that's the first thing. That's the first sign. So far, I think Barry's done a great job. Even moves that people have looked at and said, wait a minute. Hold on, you just got rid of Matt Duchene for nothing? Or fans freaked out about the 4-year deal for Ryan O'Reilly. And it's that's because his plan was to blow up the locker room, to shake it up. And he did. And it's had a positive impact. He got rid of Johansson, ate half the salary. You got nothing in return out of it. And guess what? Colorado had him for half a season and was like, oh, God, get him off this team. Just let go. I didn't even notice him on the ice on Saturday night. I turned to Vingan and I'm like, has he played in the second and third period? Because I haven't even seen him. And the second thing that's going to define whether or not Barry Trotz has success as general manager of the Predators is the evaluation of amateur talent. You know, the scouting department. Are they going to be able, because all these picks are great that we're talking about. And I think the Predators are absolutely going to add a pick at the deadline because they're going to facilitate a trade with their one extra spot to retain a contract. So when you get all these picks, do they become good players? Right now it looks good for Matthew Wood, and it looks good for Tanner Mullendijk, and it looks good for Joakim Kimmel. And maybe it looks good for that first rounder you got for next year's draft, or in the upcoming draft. Like, maybe it all looks great. But that's going to be what defines Barry Trotz. And can you find, with your second-round picks, can you find some Roman Yossi's in there? That's going to be what defines it. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and I did promise your phones. One texter says, from your knowledge, are there a few teams that are more likely to strike a deal with the Predators? And if so, what do you think those deals could entail? So here's, again, the thing about the Predators that's crazy is that the Predators could do anything. Like, they could be on the phone with anybody, right? Anaheim, for instance, is only going to be on the phone with buyers. Anaheim is only going, Chicago, they're only going to be on the phone with the Rangers or with the Panthers or with, Vegas or Vancouver. They're only going to be on the phone with the good teams because they're going to be saying, hey, would you like this guy? Or, hey, we'll retain this contract. Or, hey, you know what? That's going to be because they're only selling. The buyers are probably only talking to the sellers. You're different because you do have UFAs that playoff teams would want. Remember this before we just say, who would give up anything for Trennan or who would give up anything for Carrier? Just remember this. You gave up a second-round pick for Lozon, and you gave up a first-round pick for Ryan Hartman. And the guy who did that is in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. So there are going to be some desperate general managers out there that are probably willing to pull the trigger on deals that if we were to bring this up on June 25th, they would say, a first-round pick for Carrier? But it's different when you get to the deadline. And again, if there's one of these teams that stinks like Anaheim or Chicago or whomever, San Jose, or who, they might have a piece. Not Granlund, caller from yesterday, but there might be a piece that you can add to this roster that fits in some way, somehow, and you've got the cap space and you've got the assets and you've got the spot in the standings to be able to do it and justify it. So, again, I know that's a long-winded answer. And no, I don't know who the Predators might be trading with because, again, the Predators can trade with truly anybody. The one thing I would say is if the Predators are, on the verge of or looking to make a deal, I would expect it to be with one of these teams that hasn't made their move yet. A Boston, a New York, that kind of team. Whereas Vegas made their move yesterday. Now, Vegas, they're like the Cleveland Browns. They don't operate with the same salary cap that everybody else does, apparently. But it would be, I think, one of these Eastern Conference teams that hasn't made their big move yet. Because everybody in the West, for the most part, Colorado made their big moves today. Vegas made their move yesterday. Edmonton made their move today. Vancouver already made their move. I guess, does signing Pettersson count as a move?
You mean for Vancouver?
Yeah.
I guess so because there was, a lot of talk about if they doesn't get extended, whether he get traded. So, kind of. It
wouldn't surprise me if they made a move with Jersey just because Tom Fitzgerald and Trotz have been talking and because Tom Fitzgerald might be getting fired if they don't make the playoffs.
Sounds like it's getting a little hairy over there.
So that might be one where if you're saying, okay, who could they make a deal with, that would be and if they wanted to trade Jack Hughes to the Predators, I wouldn't be against that, but I'm not sure that's in the cards. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And coming up next, the one thing that yesterday somebody told me that they listened to the Barry Trotz interview on the show, and they said they didn't even know the Predators could do this. And I think that this could give the Predators a huge asset for almost nothing, or at least nothing that affects me and you in return. We'll explain what that is, and we'll do it next. And again, we are giving away tickets when we have the cue to call later in today's show for the Preds and the Buffalo Sabres. And so even though it is UK night at Bridgestone Arena, when is U of L night, by the way, at Bridgestone Arena? Sean Henry, we need to know if we're going to have a UK night at Bridgestone Arena, we got to have a U of L night, right? It's only fair. So be listening for your chance later this hour for the keyword for those tickets tomorrow, and then later in the show, we'll give you a chance to win. Speaking of Carrier, do not miss tonight's Smashville Live show at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. Carrier will be joined by Jeremy Lazan. Smashville Live is brought to you by the Black Abbey Brewing Company and ESPN Bet Sportsbook.
By the way, we've got more news coming out. It is now being reported that Ryan Johansson is not even going to be a Philadelphia Flyer.
Yeah, see you later.
That he's already been placed on waivers. So this was strictly the Philadelphia Flyers incentivizing Colorado to get a first for the Sean Walker deal by taking a contract off their hands and just eating it. So I don't know if this will be for the purpose of a buyout or how the remainder of the Johansson contract plays out, but it's incredible to me how a few years ago a guy was worth $8 million a year, and then, Nashville a couple years later will say, we'll pay half of your salary just so you're not here. You're like David Justice at this point. And then Colorado is saying, and we'll pay the remainder just to get him off our books. And we'll give you a first-round draft pick just so we don't have to roster him anymore. It's an incredible. He was a 2010 draft pick. That's 14 years ago. He's not a young man, but it's still a humbling fall from grace.
That was Boomer Gordon earlier today on SiriusXM NHL Network Radio. As again, the Colorado Avalanche, they came in here last week, and Ryan Johansson was on their team on Saturday, and I did not notice him for 1 second on the ice on Saturday. And word on the street has been that Colorado has been very unhappy with the play that they've gotten from Ryan Johansson. Gee, that's a surprise. And so today, in order to acquire a defenseman, Sean Walker, who's more of an offensive defenseman, according to Vengen, because I don't know who the hell this guy is, they get Sean Walker, and they give up a first, but Philadelphia has to take Ryan Johansson's $4 million cap hit. The other $4 million is to you. They have to take the $4 million cap hit of Johansson. They do, and then they immediately waive him. I got to be honest with you on the Johansson front, which we won't spend a lot of time on. I think his career is over. And I will say Barry Trotz got it right. When all these years we've been waiting for Johansson, waiting for Duchesne, every year the defense of John Hines and the reasons not to blow it up is, well, if they can just get Johansson and Duchesne, and Barry was finally like, enough, get rid of him. And so they did, and they were very cordial about it when they did. They retained half the salary, which is the maximum that they can retain. They gave him to Colorado for nothing. And less than a year later, Colorado is like, please take this $4 million albatross off of our hands, and we'll give you a first-round pick in order to do it. And so that's the move that they made today. So I think Johansson's career is done. Now, back to the Johansson contract. Because the Predators are retaining half of Johansson's salary, and they're retaining money on the Matthias Ekholm deal that they made last year with Edmonton, the Predators have one slot open to retain a contract. And Barry Trotz came on our show yesterday, laid it out, and he made it sound like they are absolutely going to retain a contract on the trade deadline day in which they take on, what would it be? So they would take on, the team trading would take on 50%. Then you would take on 25%, and then the team that's acquiring would take on 25%, and you would get a draft pick out of it. And Barry is telling us that he's waiting to do it for a big number to use a lot of that cap space to get as good of a pick as possible. Here's what he said.
So we have one spot, and I've already been, a couple teams have already approached me for, would you do this? And I said, absolutely, I would do it, but I won't do it right now because it would be unfair, because I think, they want to do it for a little smaller pieces. We're talking $1 million is a small piece. But if someone comes and says, I want this is the game changer for my team, I can do this, but you got to retain 4. Well, that's probably a second round pick, and all of a sudden you get that second round pick for really giving up nothing. So I'm going to hold on to that till probably the last day if I can, and try to use it and try to get a real, I put the feelers out for that for sure.
Okay, Barry's telling us he's going to do it, which, by the way, is a good sign that this ownership knows what they're doing, because a lot of owners, even though the Predators have not been this way over the years since they, got Tom Sigerin and Herb Fritsch in charge, The Predators have not been this way, and I don't think Governor Haslam has a cash flow problem either. But some owners would be like, whoa. We're paying Duchesne to not play for us. We're paying Johansson to not play for us. And now you want me to pay for somebody else to not play for us so we can get a second-round draft choice or a first-round draft choice or whatever it may be. And Barry's already telling you he's got the green light for that from ownership, so he's going to do it. Now, my one word of advice to Barry Trotz would be, you may not want to wait until the very, very end because it seems like now is when it's heating up. Like now that we're seeing first-round picks go. Edmonton dealt the first-round pick today. Colorado dealt the first-round pick today. The first-round picks are starting to go. And if I'm the Predators, I'd like to get in on the first-round pick market. You may not get a first-round pick on retaining a contract, but I would like to see the Predators, if this is the money day to day. And I've realized, Ian, why I think deals are getting made today.
Why?
There's 2 games on the schedule. So yesterday,
you mean for tonight? Yeah,
there was a full slate of games. Tomorrow, there's a full slate of games. And so I think we're going to see deals today, and we're going to see deals on Friday. But I don't know. If you wait until Friday, there is a chance that maybe that second-round pick deal was on the table Wednesday, but it's not there anymore come Friday because those teams have already made alternate plans because they can't wait forever for Nashville. So that would be one thing I'd keep in mind. The Eastern Conference, specifically Toronto, Boston, the Rangers, those are the teams that I'd be looking for. Now, Boston is not as attractive. Boston and Vegas are the 2 teams in the NHL that have no draft choices. So I think you could retain a contract, if Boston was just looking to clear cap space, and then you could get like a 4th in return. But Barry made it sound right there, like, I can take the 4th right now. I'm waiting for the 2nd or the 1st or something like that. One thing I wouldn't rule out, and yesterday somebody told me, this doesn't really happen all the time, and that the team wouldn't necessarily view it in a positive way if they did this. But I wouldn't rule out the idea, if I'm the Predators, of doing exactly what Philadelphia did, which is acquiring a bad contract and then just straight up, and it's got to be somebody who's expiring, and just straight up waive it. So, again, these rules are so complicated in the NHL. I can't totally understand all of them. But I think Barry said yesterday they only get 4 recalls a year. Is that for an individual player when he says that?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, they can recall more than 4 individual guys. It's only like 4 times they can recall Jankowski before, okay, now he has to stay on the team.
I guess that sounds probably right, yeah.
Okay, so they could take a guy and just straight up waive him. And Barry yesterday was kind of like, I'm not sure I'd necessarily want to do that, but I wouldn't be against it if it gets you a good pick. Like if you end up dealing a 6th, or you end up dealing, take some Scarbini at Milwaukee that you have no use for, and he's got no cap hit, and you deal him, and you in return take on Jake DeBrusk's $4 million contract, and the Bruins give you something else in return, and then you just turn around and waive DeBrusk. Now, DeBrusk ain't that bad, so I might keep him, but I'm just using him as an example. But I would not be surprised to see the Predators take on something, and I know that they're going to facilitate a deal because, again, Barry came on the show, and he told us that straight up. One texter says, Lord, my head is spinning. I mean, I understand because I don't totally understand all the stuff either. Keyser was telling me when we were in St. Louis that the reason that Tomasino got sent down is that there's only so many days that Tomasino can be in the NHL before Tomasino can't be sent down anymore. I'm like, this fakakta collective bargaining agreement. All right, so last night, something happened that I have never seen happen in all my years of watching the Predators, and it, in fact, cost them the game. This is what happened last night against Montreal.
So the Canadians on the board at 16:39, and now a quick dump in from center ice, and the score is tied.
Well, that took a wild bounce off the glass stance, and UC Saros was going behind the net to play it. And that puck just took a bounce right into the net.
David Savard taking congratulations from his teammates. And you talk about crazy bounces off the kick plate in the corner. We are tied at 2, folks. 2 goals in 6 seconds for Montreal.
I've never seen that. Puck off the stanchion. So our keyword for your cue to call later is, in fact, stanchion. So if you remember that when we give you the cue to call and you call, you will get the tickets from Ian if you are the caller that talks to Ian first. And again, that's our keyword. Chris Sanders joins us next on the program. We do have a lot of Titans to get into and a lot of free agency drama, so we'll do that next with Chris. Window Nation. Those are my guys online at windownation.com. March is a critical time to check your home's windows. Call the pros at Window Nation right now because what's happening is it's going to be nice outside for 3 hours and then cold outside. And if you've got those cracks and you can't shut your windows correctly, get them replaced. Or else your energy bills are going to skyrocket. You don't want that. I don't want that. None of us want that. Don't do that. Don't let that happen to you. So again, right now, for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 windows for free. Plus, 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. So call my friends at Window Nation. That's 866-90Nation. Or visit windownation.com. Again, that's for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 free plus 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. 866-90Nation. windownation.com. Free agency is around the corner. Titans former receiver Chris Sanders joins us on the program. There's a report out there that the Titans are interested, from USA Today, one of the many teams that are interested in trading for L'Jarius Sneed of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's great. Sneed's a great player. But you don't have the picks to be able to do. You're going to trade the 38th pick for a corner? Chris Sanders joins us on the program. What do you make of that? The rumor out there that the Titans could be in the mix for L'Jarius Sneed from the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good corner. I mean, he can come in and help in the back end, but you just made a great point about it. The Tennessee Titans need some picks, and at that 7th pick, if they try to give that away, I mean, you still got to get an offensive line. You still got to get some receivers. You still got to get a whole bunch more, in the secondary. So I don't know if you take a risk on doing that, but at the end of the day, he is a great player and he's an impact player. So if they did it, it'd be kind of interesting.
So I have decided that the Titans have eliminated options for themselves, and they do not have a choice, but they have to go left tackle at 7.
Yes,
they
absolutely.
have to go wide receiver at 38, and they have to fill the other spots, corner, center, right tackle, defensive line, all in free agency. Is it as cut and dry as that in your opinion?
Yes, it is. I mean, if you look at some of the Achilles heels of the Tennessee Titans last year, look at the offensive line. I mean, they had Dillard, they had Brunskill, and they gave up 60 sacks in the game. And then you look at the wide receiver position. Everybody knows about what Hopkins did. Hopkins had a great season, but then you need some guys to complement him in on the outside. Because if you look at what Brian Callahan said in his draft press and all the stuff that he's doing, he said this. He said we need some guys with speed and some playmaking ability. So you have to get, when you get in that position, you have to make sure that the guy is an impact player.
Do you think, Chris, that the Titans have enough ammo between the cap money and the draft picks to be able to field a good team next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. But you said this before, and I kind of agree with you. You want to make sure that you don't get backups, you get starters. You want to get guys that are coming and play right away, because I know the fans are kind of sick and tired of saying, okay, we're in a rebuilding year. That's great and everything, but now you have the cap space. Now you have the money. Now you got to go and get the players. You got the general manager situation taken care of. You got the head coach taking the situation taken care of. You got all those things taken care of. Now it's buckling down and getting the players to come in and make plays. You need a wide receiver. You need some offensive lines. You need some guys in the secondary. You got to get some guys that can come in and make plays. So at the end of the day, if they make the right choice and get the impact players, I think they can definitely be successful and put together a roster that can be really, really good.
Chris, I don't want to get somebody in trouble for something that they haven't done, but I do want your opinion on this,
Sure.
which is last year the Titans had a horrendous offseason, whether it was John Robinson's fault with the money, whether it was Mike Vrabel's fault with how much power he did or didn't have, or whether it was Rand Carthon's fault, we'll never know. But the Titans did not have a good offseason.
Sure.
This year, they've bragged since October about how much cap space they're going to have, and they do have a high pick. If the Titans don't turn this around just based upon how the organization has gone the last couple of years, do you think that it would be fair for Rand Carthon to be held to the standard that the team has to show market improvement next year for him?
Yeah, because the thing about it, I think last year was a pass. I mean, I think Rand Carthon is great. I think he's going to do great at what he's doing. But I think last year there was just so many things that were going on, Jerry. You didn't know who was making decisions. You know, if it was Rand Carthon, if you didn't know it was Mike Vrabel, you didn't know who's making the decisions. But now it's clear-cut. It's clear-cut night and day that Rand Carthon is going to make the final decision. And when you have a situation to where he makes the final decision, so if the outcome doesn't come out well, then now it's going to be on him. But just looking at what he's doing and look at what he's building, I think he's making a lot of great choices, getting the right coaches in here, getting, defensive coordinator, getting the offensive coordinator, getting your head coach. And now his job is getting the players. Because just like, what he said before, he said, if I don't do my job, if I don't bring the players in and we don't produce on the field, then I'm not going to be the general manager. So at the end of the day, it relies on him because he's the guy in charge.
Okay, let's take all the first-round receivers out right now. So that's Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, Brian Thomas, A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, and I'm going to take Xavier Worthy off the board as well because I think he goes in the first round. Out of all the receivers that ran the way they ran, who did you like outside of those guys? Who did you like at the Combine?
Oh, Xavier Legette, hands down. I mean, from South Carolina. I mean, I love what he did. He ran a 4.39. And here's what I love about Legette. He can play all three positions. You got the X position, you got the H position, and you have the Z position if you're going to 11 personnel. And the one thing I love about him, man, he's explosive. And just looking at him, this is why I get excited about this kid. Look at his body frame. Look at the way he catches the ball. Look at the things that he does. Who does he remind you of? He reminds you of a different version of A.J. Brown. Physical at the line of scrimmage, big hands to catch the ball, catching balls in tight spaces. So, I know you named a lot of guys that can come in there and make plays, but I'm telling you, man, Xavier Legette is a dude from South Carolina.
Okay, let's assume that the Titans are planning to go wide receiver at 38, which I think they're going to go wide receiver at 38. Mm-hmm. I still think they probably need one next week in free agency. Hollywood Brown's an outside guy, but he's he's only had 1 year of 1,000+ yards, and he has not panned out the way he should. Calvin Ridley is an outside guy.
Yes, he is.
But he's got off-the-field issues. In 2022, he was suspended, and he played 5 games in 2021. Darnell Mooney is a slot guy. Tyler Boyd is a slot guy. Curtis Samuel is a slot guy. And Gabe Davis is an outside guy. Do you think the Titans, knowing that there's Hopkins already, plus the 38th pick, do you think the Titans in free agency need to be looking outside guy or slot guy?
They need some speed. I mean, just like what Callahan said, he said we need guys that are going to make plays, but also we need some speed and some guys that take the top off the defense. I mean, if you look at, a lot of receivers in the draft, I mean, you got some fast guys. You got Adunze, you got Franklin from Oregon. I was kind of a little disappointed in him. I thought he was going to run a little faster. But then you got, Walker from North Carolina, guys that can make some plays. But at the end of the day, you got to get some speed, because if you look at the Tennessee Titans roster right now, if you go back to last year, if you look at the Tennessee Titans wide receiver, which guy scares you? The only person that kind of scares you is Hop. Hop is not a fast guy, but he just makes the spectacular catches. So you're going to have to get some speed. And one guy, I don't know if he's available or not, that has a chance to have some speed is Marquise Brown. I really like him from Arizona. Curtis Samuel, I know he's a speed guy, but he's kind of been inconsistent. But they have to figure out, Jared, is they got to get some speed on the perimeter and make it comfortable for Will Levis.
So you want to sign speed in free agency, but if you also draft speed, then don't you have now 3 outside guys and no inside slot guy?
Yeah, I mean, you remember you still got Kyle Phillips. I mean, Kyle Phillips, I know you don't like him. I know this and that.
Well, you can't rely on him.
Yeah, you can't rely on him, but the thing about it is that's why I love Xavier Legette, because he can play all positions. He can play an outside guy, and he can play in a slot. He can play the number 3 receiver here in the 3-by-1. So, you have that guy right there that can take, the pressure of getting another wide receiver, because he plays so many positions. That's why I love that cat so much. And when you have a guy like that can play the X, the H, the Z, and 11 personnel, it just takes the pressure off of the general manager to try and go to get another wide receiver. So I like Xavier Legette in that position.
Chris, do you think Derrick Henry and the Titans are interested in a reunion, or do you think it's over?
I think it's over, and the reason why I think it's over is because if you look at the offense that they're going to be running, you got Nick Holtz that likes to run the spread and likes to run the West Coast and all that stuff like that. I just don't think it'll. And this is not saying that Derrick Henry can't do it. It's just that I don't think it'll be a good fit for Derrick Henry. It's not that he's a great player. It's not that he can't do it. I just think that with the philosophy of Callahan, he said this. He said the teams that pass the ball well are the teams that are going to win. So what is that telling you? We're going to be a pass first and run second, as opposed to a run first, pass pass second. So I think the key is it's not that they don't want Henry. I just don't think it'll be a good for Henry, because Callahan wants to throw the ball down the field.
Chris Sanders, as always, great stuff. Next week we will be talking free agency. We will be celebrating the new league year on this program next week, Chris.
Let's go, man. You're a part of history, boss.
Every time that ball will drop on 2024 for the league year. Chris Sanders.
Yes,
Chris,
sir.
great stuff. Appreciate you.
Love you, bro. Bye-bye.
Yep. So here's that. Chris, I agree with Chris that they need speed. But if they're going to draft speed at 38, which I think they're going to do, and there's tons of it, maybe you go slot when it comes to the receiver position. All right, coming up next, league executives are polled about who's going where in the draft. And the Titans pick, whoa! We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Hey, tune into 102.5 The Game tonight as Vanderbilt's basketball team takes on Kentucky on the road. Pregame 7:30, tip-off at 8. Coverage available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenational.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So, The Athletic today, Mike Sando talks to all of his unnamed league executives. In fact, I quote-unquote follow him on The Athletic so that when you go to my Athletic account and you hit the drop-down, it's like the Atlanta Braves, the Tennessee Titans, the Nashville Predators, the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, Tennessee, and Mike Sando's face. Like that's I don't even follow Joe's face on there. I follow Mike Sando's. Why? Because he talks to unnamed NFL executives all the time. And so he talked to 6 NFL executives on the top 10 picks in this year's draft. So he basically said, okay, what do you think the top 10 will be? And then by votes, he has what the executives, kind of the composite of what they think. Number 1, Caleb Williams to the Bears. 6 voters think that will be the case. No surprise there. Number 2, Jaden Daniels to the Commanders. 5 voters think Daniels. 1 voter thinks Drake May. Number 3, Drake May to the Patriots. 5 voters think May. 1 voter thinks Daniels. So everybody thinks it's going to go in some order. Williams, May, and Daniels. Number 4. Now, this is where it starts to get hairy because I thought that Marvin Harrison Jr. was a slam dunk at number 4. But apparently at number 4, Joe Alt gets 2 votes, Dallas Turner gets 2 votes, and Marvin Harrison gets 2 votes. Boy, I don't like that. Joe Alt getting 2 votes. Number 5, the Chargers. 2 votes for Joe Alt, 2 votes for Olu Fashanu, 1 vote for Dallas Turner, and 1 vote for Malik Neighbors. Number 6, the Giants, 2 votes for Marvin Harrison, 1 vote for Malik Neighbors, 1 vote for Roma Dunze, 1 vote for J.C. Latham at Alabama, and 1 vote for Joe Alt, taking you to the Titans at number 7. Now, I'm of the belief that the Tennessee Titans are going to take the card to the commissioner if either Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu are there. If it's only one, whoever it is, that's going to be the pick. But this was all over the board. 2 votes for Fashanu, 1 vote for J.C. Latham at Alabama, a right tackle that Trevor came on the show yesterday, says, I don't think he can move to left tackle. Joe Alt, Malik Neighbors, and Jared Verse, the pass rusher, out of Florida State. According to the Sando article, 4 of the 6 executives sent an offensive lineman to the Titans. Quote, they have not replaced Taylor Lewan, and they need to do that. One of the executives said, the guy they took last year, Skoronski, was really a guard. They need a left tackle. No duh. The lone executive sending a defensive player to the Titans did so based on what he knows about Tennessee's GM Ran Carthon. I think they go with the best pass rusher, this executive said. Rand would probably rely on his 49er days and probably take Verse. I have not personally studied Verse and Turner enough to have a strong opinion, but that is my gut based on what I've seen. So here's the way that I guess I view all of this entire exercise. And that is that the Titans need to create options for themselves. But they don't just need to create options. They need to figure out what is actually feasible. Now, I am convinced that there is not a left tackle in free agency. That there is not that left tackle does not exist. That they can sign and stick at left tackle and that the guy can actually freaking play left tackle. I do not think that guy exists. You sign Tyron Smith, then Tyron Smith gets hurt, and now Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
is starting at left tackle for the Titans. You lose. You sign Trent Brown. It's going to be a competitive market because there's no left tackles out there. And so Trent Brown, who actually does play a little bit when he's motivated enough to do so, will sign a multi-year deal. He'll get real money, and he'll go hit Jenny's ice cream, and all of a sudden he'll be back to 400 pounds. You lose. There is not a guy in free agency that you can stick at left tackle right now and that there is not some sort of a prayer that is attached to them, a la the prayer that you had last year with Andre Dillard. You can't do that. But there's a chance both these tackles are gone. And there's a chance. Again, I thought Marvin Harrison at 4 was a slam dunk. Like, I felt this whole time that one of those tackles would be there because we know that the 3 quarterbacks are going to be gone. Harrison's going to be gone. And the Giants have 2 tackles at 6, so you should be fine. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this thing, once you get past 3, is all over the place right now. The reports were, and they came from Diana Rossini, so take it with a grain of salt, but the reports were that at the Combine, Arizona is trying to get out of 4, which, again, I think it says more about Marvin Harrison Jr. than it does about where Arizona is. But, again, there's executives that think that the Arizona Cardinals with that pick might take Joe Alt. And everybody has said, and I told you guys right after the Super Bowl, I came back from Vegas, and I said on that Tuesday, I said, I heard the Chargers really like Joe Alt because Harbaugh wants to build it with the offensive line, and now everybody's talking Chargers and offensive line. So if Arizona does go Joe Alt, like some of those executives think they might, then between the 2 teams in front of you, there may not be a tackle there. So the Titans have to prepare for all these different situations, and they need to be sitting down with Bill Callahan right now. And they need to say to Bill Callahan, Bill, I want you to look at all of these tackles, whether it's Guyton at Oklahoma, whether it is Fuaga at Oregon State, whether it is Fatnow, is that how I pronounce his last name, out of Washington?
Something like that.
Fatnow, whatever. Yeah. I need you to look at all these guys. I need you to tell me who can play left tackle. Now, I'm going to rank them on the board where they fit. So, like, if I've got Fuaga ranked as my 4th best tackle and I've got him ranked at 16, I can't take him at 7. I'm going to have to move out. But I need Bill Callahan to know these things. And I don't know if Bill Callahan not going to the Combine, and we'll see how much Bill Callahan goes to the Pro Days, but I don't know if Bill Callahan not doing those things is going to give him enough information to be able to make those decisions. Because the one thing that is not an option is for the Titans not to have a left tackle next year. That is the one thing that is absolutely, positively not an option. And so just know, while the 7th pick is a good pick, there is a lot of uncertainty that may be coming out of this draft. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. One former general manager says that the Titans have no choice, even if a transcendent potential special player is there. We'll play that for you next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, of course, we'll get to your phones, as we always do on the program, 615-737-1025. Tomorrow, it's your opportunity to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning at 8:45. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get it seen, heard, and sold.
Joe Alt somehow 6'8", 321, ran a 5.05, which is moving for him. And Debo asked this question, and they were talking about it on the broadcast. Is it confirmed that he's offensive tackle 1? Because he's not my offensive tackle 1.
Well, the only reason I'm saying, again, we're talking about as of today, he completed everything. And Fashanu got hurt. Mims got hurt. So you didn't see that comparison. He is probably may not have the highest ceiling, but the most ready to come in and play day one, and will be a very good left tackle in this league, or right tackle, depending on where teams say. Completely healthy. So there is not as much projection as I would say is with a Fashanu, a Mims, because Mims was like off the charts, ridiculous in measurables, but he got hurt again.
At 7, I took Joe Alt because he was the other really good offensive tackle. Would you consider Malik Neighbors here?
No, you got to get. If it's going to be Will Levis, then you better get some protection, or he's not going to have a chance.
Rick Spielman on the With the First Draft podcast, or excuse me, With the First Pick podcast on CBS, former NFL general manager with the Vikings. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And many of you are probably sitting there in the car saying, wait a minute, you hate it? Joe Alt? I mean, he's basically just saying, you got to take Joe Alt. You got to take Joe Alt. You got to take Joe Alt. First of all, I think it's 50-50 that Joe Alt's there. But here's what I hate. I hate the fact that the Titans option at 7 has already been made for them. Left tackle or trade out. If the 2 left tackles are gone, then they have to trade out. Because perhaps they can play Fatanu or Fuaga or Guyton or one of these other guys, play him at left tackle. This idea of waiting until the second round to draft a starting left tackle in the NFL, you people out there that think that you can draft a left tackle and start him in the second freaking round and start him at left tackle day one in the NFL is ridiculous. If you can start at tackle, you are gone by like the 9th pick in almost every draft. Like Trevor Penning was taken, I want to say like 18th or 19th in 2022, and he sucks. Like that is the cutoff point. You try to draft Nicholas Petit-Frere in the 3rd round and say, okay, he's going to start right away. We saw what that looked like. So the options are simple. Left tackle or trade out. And I hate it. I hate the fact that, again, right there, Ryan Wilson, the guy who's, kind of the Jared and the GM equation there with Rick Spielman, he's like, so even if Malik Neighbors is on the board, and Spielman's like, yes, if you do not protect Will Levis, none of this matters. And I just hate that the Titans are in a position where, in what looks like a loaded playmaker draft, they don't have a choice. They do not have a choice. And that sucks. Because I think Malik Neighbors is the best wide receiver in this draft. And apparently I'm not alone in thinking that, based upon the executives that Mike Sando talked to, the unnamed NFL executives who had Marvin Harrison Jr., that had the same amount of executives had Arizona drafting Joe Alt and Dallas Turner as they did Marvin Harrison Jr. And I hate that the Titans have to use that pick on a left tackle. And the reason they have to use that pick on a left tackle is because they tried to fill it on the cheap last year with Andre Dillard. People get on John Robinson for Dennis Daly, and you can if you want, but Dennis Daly was a backup. And if anybody's starting left tackle gets hurt and you have to put the backup in there, then you're screwed. Like, you are screwed. And that's just reality with any team. So Robinson gets all this blame for Dennis Daly when Dennis Daly wasn't his plan at left tackle. Lawan was. Their plan last year was Andre Dillard. And see, this is understanding how the NFL works. Last year, there was one left tackle who was available in free agency, Orlando Brown Jr. And you could have signed him. You would have had to redo Ryan Tannehill's contract. You probably would have had to redo, Harold Landry's contract earlier than you did it. But you could have done that, signed Orlando Brown Jr. if you were willing to pay the cash, and you'd have a left tackle. You'd have to overpay because the Bengals paid $64 million guaranteed in order to get him, but you would have had to do that. But because the Titans didn't have the foresight to know that A, Andre Dillard sucked, or B, that they were going to need to draft a tackle, they have now put themselves in the position where they do not have a choice, but they have to draft a tackle or they have to trade out. And the reason they have to trade out, I don't think they can take Malik Neighbors. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is there, and again, I do not think it is much of a slam dunk as a lot of you all do, that Marvin Jr. goes necessarily with that fourth pick or that Marvin Harrison is off the board by the time the Titans are picking. I'm not a Marvin Harrison guy, by the way. But I don't think it's a slam dunk that Marvin Jr. is not going to be available. You have to trade out. If somebody wants J.J. McCarthy and the left tackles are off the board, you have to trade out. Because you need more picks in order to fill your holes. But I hate being handcuffed, which is what the Titans are. And a large part of the reason why they're handcuffed is because they made a stupid pick last year in Skoronski. Because nobody drafts a freaking guard with the 11th overall pick. And so, we can talk about this until we're blue in the face. We can break down all the positions and everything else, but it sounds like the Titans are stuck because he's right. Spielman is right. If the Titans don't draft the left tackle, it doesn't matter who's playing receiver. It doesn't. That Levis is going to get killed, and Levis will hang on to the ball, no matter how much how Brian Callahan tries to coach him up. He is a hang on to the ball guy. He thinks he is so tough that he'll take any hit. He'll stand in there. That's great. Eventually, it gets to become too much. It's happened to Drew Bledsoe. But he thinks he's so tough he can stand in there, and so it doesn't matter. If you don't have a left tackle, he's going to get crushed. And because of that, they have to draft the tackle if the tackle's there. And if the tackle's not, then they have to see if Bill Callahan can manufacture something with one of these right tackles moving over to left. But I would want to trade out, and I'd want to make that pick at 14 or 12 or something like that. 615-737-1025. We're to your phones next. 615-737-1025 here on our program, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. One texter says, TD, what do you think of Jared's red-hot take yesterday that he'd rather have Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr.? And I did say that.
Jared, you know what? Your red-hot take is not one that you're alone on. There are plenty of people here that feel Malik Neighbors is the better of the two prospects. Malik Neighbors got that juice, and he's got you play him inside, you play him outside. He's a playmaker. Here's the thing with Marvin Harrison, a lot of people, Jr., that a lot of people aren't talking about. But if you go back and you watch a lot of these games, a lot of his stuff was schemed for him to get open. You'll see him like a guy running a vertical route and he's running, an in break and one underneath it. Or you'll see, a 3-by-1 formation. He's backside solo and you got two crossers over top and he's running a crosser underneath. And they're just waiting for those two crossers to take the defense out for him to clear over and hit him on a nice, easy throw. So that's not to take anything away from Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's unfortunate that he's been so good for so long because he's getting dissected way too much. But that being said, you're not alone in that take.
There you go. That was TD on Thursday of last week at the Combine. And the more and more as time went on at the Combine, the more and more we were starting to hear on TV and people say, hey, Malik Neighbors might be better than Marvin Harrison. Remember last week with Jared versus Joe? Caroline and Joe got into it about Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors, and then Robbie and Joe the next day were like Beavis and Butthead laughing at the idea that Malik Neighbors might be better than Marvin Harrison. And Mike Sando's piece in The Athletic where he talked to the 6 unnamed executives, all have quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, that's fine. But Marvin Jr. is not a slam dunk at 4. And that's because I think a lot of people are like me, and we think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is good. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is good. But you know what I don't think he is? Ian, did you ever watch the Fresh Prince back in the day?
Sure.
I do not think that he is all that in a bag of chips. I think he's fine. I don't think he's that good. Whereas for the last year, people have been like, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's just so incredible. He's just so... I'm going to be honest. I didn't even think Marvin Sr. was that good. I think Marvin Sr. was really good because Peyton Manning was his quarterback. Just like Demaryius Thomas was really, really good when Peyton Manning was his quarterback. Now, look, Marvin was good. But, like, in that era, like, at that time, the 3 best receivers in the game were T.O., him, and Randy Moss. And I don't think he was anywhere near T.O. or Randy Moss. I mean, T.O. and Randy Moss could light it up with me at quarterback. But this isn't about Marvin Sr., it's about Marvin Jr. Somebody texted me or tweeted me and said, did you just say if Marvin Jr. is available at 7, trade out? Oh, yeah. Because if there's somebody in this league that's as obsessed with Marvin Jr. as Twitter is and the media is, then they'll give you a haul for Marvin Jr. in what is an incredibly deep wide receiver draft. I am not drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 7th pick, folks. It is not happening. So I'm sorry. I mean, at least for me, to me, that first round pick that you have, and it is incredibly unlikely that you end up with 2 first round picks in this year's draft. So if you trade back to 12 or 14 or 18, you may pick up a first in next year's draft. But that first round pick that you use this year, in my opinion, has to be your left tackle. So if Bill Callahan could move Fuaga over to left tackle, then you can draft him. If he can play Fatanu at left tackle out of Washington, then you can draft him. Guyton, you can draft him. Latham, you can draft him. But if Bill Callahan doesn't say you can move the guy to left tackle, then you can't draft him. And if he doesn't play left tackle, you can't draft him. It's as simple as that. You're not getting your left tackle at 38. You are not. Repeat after me. Everybody, I'm looking at the camera right now. You are not getting your left tackle at 38. If somebody tries to make the suggestion to Rand Carthon that he should wait until the 2nd round, if they're on that board on draft night and they're sitting there and they're like, oh, God, we love Roma Dunze, but we like him more than Olu Fashanu, guess what? You have to take the tackle. You've put yourself in this position. You put yourself in this position when you busted out on Andre Dillard and when you didn't see if the guard you took at 11 last year could play left tackle. That's your fault. It's not my fault. Don't blame me. We all remember how freaking bananas I went on the draft night show when they drafted Skoronski and took a guard with the 11th overall pick. I was shocked. I figured kicker. You know, if we're going to go off that, I figure why not kicker? Caleb says, I think option one should be to trade back for one of the guys that you said at left tackle. Trading back, if Joe Alt's there, is not an option. I mean, again, the most important thing about this season for the Titans is how do you make Will Levis good, right? That is all that matters. How do you make Will Levis good? And the first step of how you make Will Levis good is you protect him. The second step with how you make Will Levis good is you give him somebody who can run. The third way that you make Will Levis good is that you enhance your defense so Will Levis can win games by scoring 20 points and not by having to score 30 points. And then the fourth and final way that you make Will Levis good is that you give him somebody else other than DeAndre Hopkins and Tajay Spears whom he can rely on. And I think a running game is probably in there somewhere too. But that's what this entire season's about. And so if Joe Alt, Fashnow, and I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, honestly. I keep jumping between the two. I think it's Fashnow. But Fashnow and Mims, the left tackles, those guys both got hurt at the combine, and those guys both are labeled as somewhat of projects. Whereas Alt, you listen to these NFL guys just talk about what he did at the combine and what he's got on the tape, and they're like, oh, God, he's so ready right now. Plug him in and play him. That's what you need. That is the first step of the many steps and the many things that you have to do in order to make Will Levis good. Texter says, if Joe Alt is there at 7, take him. But if the trade rumors have any truth about teams wanting to move up for a quarterback, the Titans need to entertain it. But I wouldn't cry if they snagged a playmaker, only because I'm hoping that big coach, Bill Callahan, makes all the difference on the offensive line. So this is the one way that Ran Carthon stays out of trouble if he doesn't solve left tackle in the first round. Because there is not a free agent in left tackle. Or there is not a left tackle in free agency. In my opinion, there is not a reliable starting left tackle. The way that Brian Callahan saves, or the way that Ran Carthon doesn't take a tackle with the 7th pick and saves his job, is if Brian Callahan truly is a miracle worker. And Rich Gannon came on our show at the Super Bowl, and he used Barrett Sims as the example, and Rich was like, that guy could not walk and chew gum when he showed up in the NFL, and he turned into a reliable offensive lineman. And so if Bill Callahan can do that, then you may not have to draft the tackle at 7. But as much as I like a good line coach, I'm not convinced that the Titans, that he can turn water into wine. I'm just not convinced of it. Man, texter into the text line, Dexter's like, stop complaining about Skoronski. It was a year ago. Who would you have drafted? Would have drafted a position that mattered. That's the important part. Texter says, I think you'll say no, and I don't think they can or should, but do you think that the Titans should move up to get Joe Alt? That comes from Josh in White House. You're right. The answer to that is no. I just don't believe that the Titans can get in the business of trading away picks right now. They're not in the position. They don't have, I did the math yesterday of the guys that are likely to make the team. In fact, I have it in front of me, and I thought I was pretty liberal with my totals of guys that are likely to make the team. Right now, there's 35 total guys that are under contract that I think are likely to make the team for next season. And I don't think I included the kicker and the long snapper because they don't have them. But Levis, Willis, Spears, Chestnut, Haskins, Hopkins, Burks, Phillips, Okonkwo, Wiley, Petit Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
Radence, Duncan, Skoronski, Brunskill, Simmons, T.K. McClendon, Bohanna, and Coburn. So, Ian, you guys saying, I am really giving benefit of the doubt here.
Yep.
Landry, Key, Weaver, Murphy, Gibbons, Wallow, JoJo Doman, and Otis Reese. McCreary, Avery, Guerrer, and Farley's hurt, so I put him as injured. Hooker, Molden, Jackson, and Stonehouse. That's 35 total. Now, you've got that's guys that are for sure going to make the team. And again, maybe I shouldn't have Bohanna and Coburn on there, but I am being liberal here. So 35. You've got 4 picks in rounds 1 through 5. That's 39 total players. If you trade away picks, where are you going to make up the difference? And the answer is you're going to make up the difference by adding these Scarbinis off these practice squads that got you into the same mess you're in right now, where you've got Jack Gibbons playing middle linebacker. That's the problem. So as much as I like Joe Alt, I think you have to play the board a little bit. Hey, roll the dice, play the board. I think you have to play the board a little bit and expect or hope that one of those 2 tackles falls to you at 7 so that you don't have to use another player to be able to move up and take that guy. 615-737-1025. More of your phone, 615-737-1025 here on our program if you want to weigh in on the show. And the Titans have a position that I think is important. I mean, I think it is a big deal as to what the Titans do at this position. Nobody is talking about it. It is very much a hole. And I think it is truly important as we approach free agency. We'll hit that next, and then we're to your phones. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. when you left the Titans and there was a year of terribleness with Cody Carlson and then Steve McNair gets drafted, Floyd told me that one of the big things that was kind of underrated in Steve's development was the role that Neil O'Donnell played for Steve. Do you think it's important? Like, what are the qualities that are important in a backup for Will Levis to help him grow, or does it matter in your opinion?
No, it matters. First of all, he's got to know his role. The backup's got to know his role. If he's trying to get the job from the number one guy, if he's competing with him, there's going to be a problem there. But if he knows his role as a backup, his role is to be a mentor, his role is to be there if something happens, God forbid, to the starter. That's the first key right there, because if that guy knows what his role is, he's going to be more in tune to helping the young guy develop. If he's not, if he's trying to take his job from him, it's just not going to work, because he's not going to ever be as forthcoming with different advice that he can give a young guy. So I wish I would have had a veteran guy when I first came into the league to help me along the way, but it didn't happen. But if they could get somebody like that for Will next year, if Tannehill does leave, it would really be good for his development, because he still has a whole lot to learn. And if he can have somebody that's played the game, that's been through the battles, that knows how to prepare and all those different things, it'll really help him.
That was Warren Moon on our show at the Super Bowl, and I think Warren knows what he's talking about. And so free agency is approaching. We have talked almost zero about backup quarterback. But let me just say this. It is important. And it is important that the Titans get the right guy in as the backup quarterback to Will Levis. And you heard what Warren said. It has to be somebody who knows they're not going to be challenging Will Levis for the job. And I was listening to Albert Breer. This is on NBC Sports Boston. And they were talking about how important the backup quarterback position might be for a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels if the Patriots were to take him. And this is what Albert Breer said about the importance of the backup quarterback in Houston this past year.
The priority in the room has to be developing the young quarterback. The priority has to be putting the right people around the young quarterback. Yeah. I can even tell you the story of what happened in Houston.
I don't want to hear the story.
But I'll just tell you.
I don't want to hear the story.
Case Keenum was valuable to C.J. Stroud in that room. So you want to have somebody who's going to be a resource to the starter.
C.J. Stroud, I'm giving Case Keenum 0.0 credit for C.J. Stroud. But it's important. C.J. Stroud can play.
But it's important to have the right environment in that room. That's what I'm saying.
It is important. And Felger, I love him. You know that. But the idea that it wasn't important to put C.J. Stroud with a veteran, I completely disagree with. Because, again, Floyd told me Neil O'Donnell was important to Steve McNair. Warren Moon told me that it is important that they get a veteran mentor, that they sign, that they tell, hey, you are the veteran mentor to Will Levis. And then Albert Breer says, and clearly he's talking to somebody from the Texans, probably Caserio, who's like, no, it was really important in this process that we had Case Keenum there. So backup quarterback is an important position. And another reason it's an important position is because Levis gets hurt all the time, and because the way the NFL is now, and you saw it this past season, but backup quarterbacks play. Like, backup quarterbacks get in the game. Backup quarterbacks have to play. And so, I think that you got to have a special checklist for backup quarterback. One, has to be a veteran who doesn't need a practice rep, because those all go to Levis. Two, has to understand he ain't the starter. Three, has got to be able to know or operate Brian Callahan's system. And four, has to be able to play if he has to go in a game. So Brandon Allen, who was the backup to Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, would make a lot of sense. The problem is Brandon Allen sucks. So if something happens to Levis and he has to go in and play, you lose. And I don't want that. It's got to be somebody who, like Neil O'Donnell, if he has to go in there, he can win a game for you. One texter says, I think the Titans should trade down if Olu Fashanu is still available in the top 10, because I think he's going to fall. Let me say this, texter. I don't think any left tackle, because there are two. Trevor has come on the show and said there are two guys in this draft you can take at left tackle that aren't a risk. I don't think left tackles who aren't a risk fall in the draft. I do not see it. Danny has been waiting patiently and is up next on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Danny?
How you doing, Jared? I'd like to talk a little bit about Brock Bowers.
Okay.
Haven't heard much interest in him, but if you're looking at a generational player, He's won 2 national championships, been the best player on the field in most of his games. And if you want to try to fill in now and for the future, I'd almost have to make it happen some way or another if he's healthy.
So here's the thing about Brock Bowers. And Danny, I appreciate your call. Here's the thing about Brock Bowers when it comes to me, which is if Brock Bowers is more than a tight end, then we can have the discussion. So I guess his measurables weren't great or whatever at the combine. I don't care about that. I don't know what he did or didn't do, how he ran. The one thing that's odd about the tight end position is that very rarely the best tight ends are the guys who are taken first, right? Kyle Pitts was supposed to be a generational tight end. What's he doing? Shannon Sharp was taken at the end of a draft. So I think that, Kelsey and Kittle were in the middle rounds. But if Bowers profiles to be like a Swiss Army knife type player, and I am not comparing him to this guy in any way from a personality standpoint, but just with how he's usable on the football field, you know where I'm going with this, Ian, don't you?
Maybe.
You want to take a guess?
Go. No, I guess I'm blanking.
Aaron Hernandez.
Oh, boy.
So the way Aaron Hernandez was used on the football field, Aaron Hernandez was an incredible player, and everybody knows that.
Yeah, they did line him up as like H-back and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, they win a game. Floyd told me they went into a game where they hand the ball off to him like he was a running back.
Yeah.
And so if you can do that with Brock Bowers, if he's that type of player, then we can have the discussion. But if you're going to line him up at tight end and he's going to be a tight end, I'm not interested. But I will say this, the 2 best tight ends in the NFL, Kittle and Kelsey, both happen to be in the Super Bowl. Robert in Spring Hill has a heater into the text line. He says, if the Titans need more draft picks, then why don't they sign Chris Jones to whatever he wants and then turn around and trade Jeffrey Simmons for a first-round pick or 2, and that way you can solidify getting your offensive lineman for the future, a wide receiver for the future, and then you would alleviate not having that third-round pick, and Jones would replace Simmons. Now, that is a heater of a take, Ian.
That's using the brain.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I will go on record and say this. I don't think they'll do it because of the money they've already paid Simmons and the money they'd have to pay Jones. But I am all for creativity. And I think that is a creative way. As I've said, if you don't have first-round picks, you can buy them. And this is a case of buying a pick. You're going to overpay Jones to replace Simmons, and then you're going to trade Simmons in order to get the picks. I don't hate it. They won't do it, but that doesn't mean that it's a terrible idea. I'm going to say it's not a terrible idea. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There is a report out there on how the Titans may address one very important need. But is it a good idea? We'll discuss that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. So there is a report that came out. And again, when it comes to reports this time of the year, we have to remember the old Ferengi rule of acquisition from Star Trek. Hear all, trust nothing. But there was a report that came out from USA Today. And again, when I say that it came out from USA Today, that is also somewhat loaded. Because 15 years ago, USA Today meant that, I mean, this is a big-time writer, a big-time paper that's all across the country, and now USA Today operates like 19 different websites. So it could be some Scarbini guy that reported. I have no idea. But the report is that the Titans have expressed interest in the Chiefs corner, L'Jarius Sneed. The Titans are one of 7 teams. Apparently, the Vikings, Colts, Titans, Patriots, Lions, Falcons, and Jags have all expressed interest in L'Jarius Sneed. Now, let me say this before I even start. When I went over the free agent board at corner, I did not include L'Jarius Sneed because he had already been franchised by the Chiefs. So I have not studied him at all. I have not looked at the numbers. I have not looked at what any of it says. I'm out. I am not interested. And L'Jarius Sneed is a great ball player. And if L'Jarius Sneed was a free agent, I would be yelling, hey, if the top of the market is $21 million for a corner, go ahead and pay him $23, $24 to get him. But I'm not going to argue that the Titans should be involved in L'Jarius Sneed in this instant. And here's why. What are you going to trade? The 7th pick is not an option, and Kansas City knows that. But for a player of L'Jarius Sneed's quality, with the fact that you have to sign him to a contract extension, the expectation is probably that he'll go for a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. Well, you don't have a 3rd round pick, so that limits your options. So now, in order to acquire L'Jarius Sneed, you need to trade the 38th pick. So I have to trade the 38th pick, then I have to give L'Jarius Sneed this massive contract, and I lose the player that I was going to select, which would possibly be what? A wide receiver. So in this process, I have given out a big free agent contract to Sneed, and I have lost a valuable asset, my young, fast, uninjured receiver that I'm planning to draft with the 38th pick. That's not an option. There is one trade I would consider when it comes to adding L'Jarius Sneed. And Ian, the people are not going to like this.
Uh-oh.
But again, when it comes to trading, everybody thinks trading is so simple. We've talked about this for years. Preds fans have said, just trade Johansson, just trade Duchesne. Guys, nobody wants the players that you don't want. So here's the trade. Kansas City, it is well documented, is a cheap franchise. And it's also well documented that it seems like they and Chris Jones are going to come to an agreement. There's a lot of money that Kansas City, they're paying Jones and they're paying Mahomes, and, they're probably going to have to pay Kelsey at some point, and oof. So here's the deal. The Titans trade Peter Skoronski to the Kansas City Chiefs in a deal that returns Joe Thuney, the all-pro guard, and L'Jarius Sneed. And then I give L'Jarius Sneed a contract. Now, if you're the Titans, that is basically a commitment of like $50 million a season. So that is a commitment of $40 million a season. And I don't know how many more seasons Thuney's got, but again, I'm basically swapping out. What I'm doing to the Chiefs is I'm saying not only am I going to take the Sneed contract off your hands, but I'm going to take the Thuney contract off your hands, and I'm going to allow you to have a cheap left guard in Peter Skoronski who is controllable for you for the next 4 years. Now, I don't know if Kansas City would say no to that. I'm looking at Thuney's contract. He's got 2 more years at $15.5 per, plus he's got a $500,000 workout bonus. So make of that what you will. But that's the deal. 15.5 plus 500, 16 million for Thuney for the next 2 years. Plus 21 is probably what you'd have to pay Sneed. So 21 plus 16, what is that, 37? $37 million, and they get Skoronski. But I'm not giving up the 38th pick. And I don't know if Kansas City would take that. And I bet there are a lot of Titan fans out there in Titanland that don't like that idea. But the one thing I'm not doing is I am not going out of my way. I am under no circumstances am I going to give up the 38th pick in order to acquire a corner, especially when the Titans can go out and overpay Kendall Fuller from Washington, who is the top of my free agent board. He is a guy that I would make a day one offer to because I don't like these other options. Chidobe Awuzie, Steven Nelson, I don't like that option. I don't like Kenny Moore. Stephon Gilmore's about 38 years old. I think he'll be 34 years old. I'm not interested in that. So, if you want L'Jarius Sneed, you either have to give up the 38th pick or you got to find some middle ground somewhere. One texter, our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One texter goes, "What are you smoking? The Chiefs will laugh at that." Will they? Let's think about this. If the Chiefs laugh at that, part of the reason that they'll laugh at that is because they'll say, why would we want a guard when we can just get a guard in the 4th round? Like, what are we talking about? But in this instance, Skoronski is young and he's cheap. And we know that the Chiefs do not like spending money. It is well documented. That's why their owner got an F-, because the players are like, this cheap a-hole won't spend any money. So, again, I mean, I'm just – if you want L'Jarius Sneed, that's how you do it. Because I'm not interested in giving up the 38th pick and turning around and handing Ladd McConkey or Xavier Legette to Kansas City. So, wow, I got a corner. That's great. I just paid him a fortune. So now I've got at least one corner. But now who's playing receiver for me? Who's running down the field? Where is my speed when it comes to wide receiver? That's what I want. And I know everybody will tell me, oh, well, we got to go get this guy or we got to go get that guy or I don't know. One texter says, Jared, what do you think about Jeff Okudah, the corner from the Falcons? Out. He is a bust. B-U-S-T. The guy was the 3rd overall pick by the Lions, and they gave him away for a bag of footballs. And I don't know what he did with Atlanta, but I'm sure it wasn't much. Bust. No thank you. I am not investing in a bust to play a premium spot. I am going to invest in a guy who has already played in the NFL as a starter and have proven that they belong in the NFL. And Jeff Okudah has not done that. So I am not interested in Jeff Okudah. Ian, when's the last time the Titans decided, you know what? Let's take this bust from another team that was taken in the 1st round. Let's invest in him, and let's see if he can start for us.
Oh, you mean Andre Dillard?
Yes. I'm not doing that. Bust. I do not want a bust. I don't want Chase Young. He's a bust. I want good players, not bad players that we thought were good when they came out in the draft. Just like I don't want Isaiah Wilson or Rashaan Evans or Corey Davis. Because at some level or another, they're all busts. And Okudah is a bust. And it is telling that not only Okudah was the Lions, please get the hell out of here. We have a terrible pass defense, but just go. But the Falcons probably don't want him back either. That's why he's hitting free agency. No. 615-737-1025. More of your phones on this. Again, the Titans are reportedly one of 7 teams that have reached out to the Chiefs when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed. What do we make of that? 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company rolls along 1025, 1063 The Game. Twice daily. Had lunch from Twice Daily yesterday. They made me a wonderful wrap. And you can get those wonderful wraps too. Try them today. Go to the kiosk, get a Twice Daily. Just boom, click in everything you want. They got the Italian, the ham and cheddar, turkey and Swiss, and Nashville hot chicken. And they're made to order with your favorite toppings. You can also download the Twice Daily app to order ahead. And they've got snacks at Twice Daily now. At Twice Daily, it's snack time all the time. So they've got your favorites like chicken fingers and tater rounds. And new pretzels like salted garlic parmesan or cinnamon sugar. Also available through their made-to-order kiosk and the app. Download the Twice Daily app and join the loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily, where you earn points and save money with every visit. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, fresh all day.
The Kansas City Chiefs have placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on Minden grad L'Jarius Sneed. And this gives Sneed the opportunity to talk to other teams who then could work out a trade for the former Louisiana Tech star defensive back. The Chiefs have told Sneed this and let him know that they're open to completing a trade. A new contract for Sneed could be worked out with another team as part of a trade to kick off the new league year on Wednesday. Now, if JJ were to play this season with the Chiefs on the franchise tag, he'd earn just under $20 million. In 57 regular season games, Sneed has 10 interceptions and 40 passes defended.
JJ is L'Jarius Sneed's nickname?
First I'm hearing of it.
Where do we get JJ from? LJ, I would understand, right?
Yeah.
Like his name is L'Jarius.
Yes.
Where's JJ come from?
I'm not sure.
Well, if the Titans actually, again, it was USA Today is reporting that they're one of the 7 teams that are interested in acquiring JJ. But if they do, then we'll figure out the origin of JJ. Until then, I just would say I'm not trading the 38th pick. I'm not trading a pick in next year's draft for L'Jarius Sneed. And I like L'Jarius Sneed, but I'm not doing it. I'll go sign a corner. Kyle, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kyle is up next here on the program. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, Jared. I've been hearing that Sneed had some bad knees and hadn't been practicing the last few weeks, especially in the playoffs, saving for all he's got. So I don't want to give up a pick. I would be willing to give up Traylon Burks since they need some receivers. I bet Andy Reid could find some use for him, and we could use Sneed. So what do you think about that?
So I think that while that sounds great, the offers they're going to get are better than Burks.
I'm hearing 5th-round picks is what they're getting, though.
Where are you hearing that from?
I was listening to the other radio show this morning, but they were saying that's just the word coming out of the combine and everything, that his knees are bad and people are really worried about it.
If somebody says a 5th-round pick, Kyle, thank you for your call. If somebody says a 5th-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed, then the Chiefs would have never franchise tagged him. Like, come on now. 5th-round picks for guys who are expensive, those are deals when a team wants to get rid of somebody, but they're good enough not to cut, right? Like Jalen Ramsey last year. The Rams didn't want him anymore. So they traded him to the Dolphins because the Dolphins were willing to pay all that money for Jalen Ramsey. So I think they got like a 3rd rounder out of it or something like that. That's what, a 6th rounder for Amari Cooper because Dallas didn't want to pay him anymore because they had CeeDee Lamb and Cleveland was fine with paying him. So Dallas, let's get something. We'll see if we can get something instead of just straight up cutting him. And then Cleveland doesn't have to compete with anybody else for Amari Cooper services. That is what a 5th-round pick is for. You do not franchise tag somebody, and then they go on the market for a 5th-round pick. If Kansas City, if that were the case, Kansas City would have tagged Chris Jones, and they wouldn't have to worry about this at all. I mean, I think what's happening right now is if you call the Chiefs, they're asking you for a 1st-round pick. You're going to say no. They're probably really looking for a 2nd-round pick. I don't know where in the hell you get the idea of a 5th-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed from. Unbelievable. I don't know where some of you people come up with some of this stuff. One texter says, what about the Titans signing Gabriel Davis? Over 3,000 yards in his first 3 years with Buffalo. Big game experience. That comes from Randy. He does not have 3,000 yards in 3 years. He has 3,000 yards in 4 years. And so I think that's pretty important because he's never had a 1,000-yard season. According to my notes on Gabriel Davis, he played in 17 games last year, but he did miss both playoff games with an injury. He is somewhat reliable, 15 and 22, 16 and 21. He does play out wide instead of the slot, which is a big question the Titans are going to have to figure out, which is, do you want your wide receiver to be playing out wide? Like, they're going to sign a receiver in free agency probably on day one. The question for me is, do you want a guy out wide or do you want a guy in the slot? I think we can all agree that the Titans need speed at receiver, but you're going to get that with the 38th pick. Because you're going to take Ladd McConkey, who runs a 4.39, or Xavier Legette at 4.39, or one of those fast receivers from the combine, unless they sign Keon Coleman. You're going to get one of those fast receivers. So if that's going to be your speed guy, he's an outside guy. DeAndre Hopkins is an outside guy. Do you want to sign an outside guy or an inside guy? If you want to sign an inside guy, then Tyler Boyd's an option, or Curtis Samuel is an option. But Gabe Davis is not an option on the inside. He played 90% out wide last year. Now, he is decent on deep throws, a 99.4 grade according to Pro Football Focus on throws that were 20 yards or more, and he made 2 of 4 contested deep catches, which I think is pretty good. But again, he's never had a 1,000-yard season. So when it comes to Gabe Davis, I'd consider it, but I need to know when it comes to free agency what I am looking for.
Shouldn't they get one of each in free agency so you don't have to, be picky in the draft and just pick the best one you like?
But where are they going to play?
What do you mean? In the draft?
So if I pay, let's say that I sign Calvin Ridley and Curtis Samuel,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
So I got a slot and I got an outside guy.
Okay.
So now I've got Burks on the roster, and he's going to be on the roster. Hopkins on the roster, and he's going to be and should be on the roster.
You worried about the lack of touches for the rookie?
Well, I'm gonna use a pick at 38. I mean, how many spots can I have for all these different receivers? Like, if I'm paying you, you have to play. If I draft you in the second round, you have to play.
So that would be like 5 kind of high picked.
So I'm fine with sticking Burks on the bench, right? Like, I think Burks, hey, you got to earn your way onto the field. But if I'm paying Calvin Ridley $17 million and I'm paying Curtis Samuel $9 million and I'm drafting a guy 38, I mean, if I pay you $9 million, I want you on the field. If I draft you 38, I want you on the field. So that one I guess I would struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew says, what about a trade for L'Jarius Sneed? The Titans offering Harold Landry 1-for-1 straight up. Why would they do that? They have Karlaftis, who's on a rookie deal and is a better player than Landry. I don't think that that's a very viable option. I just don't think that there's any chance that the Titans just cannot acquire L'Jarius Sneed. If this were 2016 and the Titans had 3 second-round picks, they very much could use one of those picks in order to acquire L'Jarius Sneed. But they don't. They don't have that option. The Titans' past transgressions, and we can blame whoever we want for this, but the Titans' past transgressions have locked them in to choices that they may not want to make, but they are required to make. They're going to have to draft a tackle at 7 overall. They will have to use their first-round pick, whether it's at 7 or they trade back, because one of these guys can move over to left tackle. They get the thumbs up from Brian Callahan or Bill Callahan. But they're going to have to draft their tackle in the first round. They're going to have to draft their receiver in the second round. Those choices have been made. One texter says Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I would say he's probably a top 2 quarterback in the NFL, but that's just me. Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. There's no certainty that Levis will be that guy. Cincinnati can deal with injuries to Burrow because he's that dude, but when do the Titans weigh getting another guy? Because Levis might not be reliable to stay healthy. The answer to that's simple. Next year. Like, this is the year that Will Levis has. Like, I know it's going to say it's not fair, but the NFL's not fair. This is Will Levis's chance. If the Titans stink this upcoming year, it will probably be because Levis stinks. And so if Levis stinks, then they'll be looking for a quarterback. They'll have a high draft choice, and they'll either use it on the quarterback or they'll go get another quarterback. Like a Baker Mayfield type of quarterback. It's like Sam Howell in Washington. This time last year, Washington basically told everybody, we're not interested in Aaron Rodgers, and we're not interested in Derek Carr, and we're not interested in the market when it comes to these quarterbacks because we're going with Sam Howell. And everybody said, wait a minute, hold up now. Sam Howell is not that good, is he? We'll see. They put Sam Howell out there. They lost a bunch of games, and now they've got their answer. That's where Levis is right now. So if Levis gets hurt this year, they'll move off him. If Levis stinks, they'll move off him. So when you ask, so when do we decide that the injury's piling up or too much? This year. Jeff is up next on Jordan Poyer, who's been released by the Bills. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, how are you today?
Good.
So what do you think about picking him up? You could probably get him cheap.
So here's what I think about the safety position, because today Buffalo released Jordan Poyer. Thank you, Jeff. Today Buffalo released Jordan Poyer. Right now, the safety market is absolutely flooded. In fact, I think some of these teams are cutting safeties because what they're doing is they're paying safeties $11, $12 million, and they're like, well, if there's 19 decent safeties on the market, I can cut my safety at $14 million and then wait until the draft, and I can sign these guys that'll still be out there for $4, $5, $6 million. And that's what I think's happening. So when it comes to me, as far as when you ask me about Jordan Poyer, it's like asking me about Jordan Poyer or Quadre Diggs or any of these guys. They're all getting released. Every single one of them except for Minka Fitzpatrick. The Commanders have a decent safety who they're letting walk in free agency. The Patriots, I don't understand this, transition tagged their safety.
They like the Duggar kid.
That's fine. Then sign him. Why are you transition tagging him?
That I don't know, but
stupid. I mean, like, at least that's my opinion of it. But basically, all the high-priced safeties are going away. And I think it's just because none of them are good enough. They don't make enough plays, except for, again, Minka Fitzpatrick. All right, Fitz will join us coming up next. His thoughts on what he's hearing about the NFL and free agency and as our world turns. We'll do that coming up next right here. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company. So yesterday we played a cut of former NFL GM Rick Spielman talking about how much he loves J.J. McCarthy. And remember, Rick Spielman hated Will Levis. And I was like, J.J. McCarthy is the exact opposite of Will Levis. And you're saying, hold on, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? And what I mean is that Levis didn't win at Kentucky, and that was a knock on him. Like, yeah, I mean, he's got a great arm and he's got great measurables, but he didn't win a lot, and he was always hurt. And is he a good leader? Is he a good guy? McCarthy, it's like, well, he can't really throw the ball deep, and he didn't put up great stats at Michigan, but they won a lot. And he played for Harbaugh, and he's a leader. And I do think the anti-Levis crowd, which ended up being the entire NFL, is the pro-McCarthy crowd, because, again, they're the opposites. And in this Mike Sando piece where he talked to those 6 executives in The Athletic about who's going to go in the top 10, once they got to number 4, there was a lot of talk about J.J. McCarthy. One executive was picturing one of the quarterback-needy teams vaulting into the 4th pick for either J.J. McCarthy or Drake May. The Cardinals have already committed to Murray as their quarterback, but they could move to 12 with Denver. And then, of course, we've always talked also about Minnesota and the Raiders. And Atlanta is the quarterback-needy team that is ahead of you. Jason Fitz joins us now on the program, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. Fitz, is the J.J. McCarthy hype real? And should we, as Titan fans with the 7th overall pick, should we be paying attention to what the J.J. McCarthy hype means for that pick and the Titans?
Yeah, 100%. It's real. JJ, I think, will be gone by the time he gets to the Titans. If he's not, the Titans are in a great trade position. I've been saying nationally for the last couple of weeks that I think the Titans are in a great trade position because there will be a quarterback probably available around there, and we'll see what happens. But here's the one thing with JJ, and I talked to one former NFL GM about JJ last week, and he said the biggest difference that we're not factoring into the JJ conversation is that he's asked to do a lot more at the line of scrimmage than other quarterbacks are. We've all talked about the fact that he's particularly smart, has a photographic memory, he can pull plays from previous years, all of these different things. Teams have fallen in love with his intelligence. And, you know, we all know this if you watch college football. You look over to the sideline, the signs pop up in the air, and it tells the quarterback what the variable is. So that there's not a lot of thinking to be a college quarterback at this level. And we know that for all of the guys, for Caleb, for Drake, for Jaden, that's true. For JJ, that's not true. He has been running a true NFL-style offense. So teams trust his intelligence more than we do. I don't think there's a bigger unknown in this year's draft than JJ because I got nothing. I mean, I can't tell you if he's going to be any good or he's not going to be any good because even when I asked Harbaugh flat out if he's the next Andrew Luck or Tom Brady, why didn't you build the offense more around his skill set? Harbaugh danced around that question. I don't have an answer for it. So JJ's a wild unknown, but teams absolutely love him. He will be gone. We'll have 5 quarterbacks when it's all said, or 4 quarterbacks when it's all said and done. We'll go in the top 8.
So you think that before the Titans pick, you think JJ's off the board? How would you peg this? You know, like let's say quarterback 1, 2, 3, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Quarterback 1, 2, 3.
Arizona at 4. Do they trade out for the quarterback?
I think Arizona could trade out because if Atlanta doesn't land Kirk Cousins, they're actively trying to move up from 8. So you could trade down to 8 and still give yourself, if you know you're trading with Atlanta, you're still going to get one of the top 3 wide receivers on the board, and that's what they want right now. So you're either going to get the best offensive lineman or you're going to get one of the best wide receivers. So I think that they're a heavy candidate. Let's also factor in the fact that the Giants are aggressively trying to move up to get a quarterback. So will the Giants move up to 3 and then take New England down to 6? And if New England goes down to 6, will they then double bag their way down to 13 or 12, either one? Because Denver and the Raiders are both aggressively trying to move up also.
Okay, so under this, guys, how likely do you think it is that Joe Alt is available with the 7th overall pick for the Titans?
More likely than it should be. I said to somebody the other day, I've talked to, half a dozen fat guys. I think the best way to look at offensive linemen, in my opinion, is to ask guys that play the position at the highest level. I've talked to about half a dozen of them, and they talk about Joe Alt the same way like a fat guy would talk about a Cinnabon all-you-can-eat buffet line. Like, they're absolutely in love with this kid. So I'm not going to pretend to be able to break down offensive linemen, but I can tell you every single one that I talk to believes that Joe Alt is can't miss. So I think it would be brilliant. If you're the Titans and you let everybody else fight on this over all of these different things, and you just sit there and take the best offensive lineman on the board, that to me, that's a smart strategy. I would not fault the Titans at all for refusing trade down offers if it meant that they walked with Joe Alt.
So here's what I've said, because Dane Brugler at The Athletic did his mock draft, and he had the Titans trading out of 7 with Minnesota at 11. And in the deal, Minnesota ended up drafting J.J. McCarthy, and Joe Alt went 8, and Olu Fashionow went 10, and the Titans ended up taking J.C. Latham, who Trevor Maddich has come on our show. To your point about if you want to know about the linemen, who do you talk to? We talked to Trevor. And Trevor said that he thinks J.C. Latham is a right tackle, that he does not foresee Latham being able to transition over to left tackle. And so the deal that Brugler has the Titans accepting is a move to 11 plus a 4th rounder plus a 2nd next year. I'm like, that's not good enough for me to pass on Joe Alt. If I'm moving out with Joe Alt, left tackle, never have to worry about the position again, and treat it like Taylor Lewan, but maybe even better, and on I go. So if I'm going to give that up, you gotta make me give that up, as opposed to what a Jimmy Johnson draft trade chart would say.
If anyone's listened to my weekly conversation with you, I'm not afraid to disagree with you. This might be your smartest take. I'm not even kidding. I'm not exaggerating. This might be your smartest take. You're so right on this. There are not 32 caliber starting left tackles in the NFL currently. There just aren't. And if you want to look, as much as we obsess over skill position and we obsess over quarterback, if you want to look around, the teams that play well consistently have a good offensive line. This is not rocket science. There is no way possible that a 2nd rounder next year would be enough for me to walk away from Joe Alt and walk over to J.C. Latham. That is not at all. There's just not a situation where that exists in reality in my mind. And honestly, when you start talking about the importance of left tackle position, particularly, as we all know, there's a reason why guys get paid so much money to be there. I was having drinks last year after we finished our draft broadcast on ESPN. It was me, Hawk, Harry Douglas, Field Yates, a bunch of us having drinks. And Field was the one that said, man, what fan bases should always remember is that a boring draft sometimes is a great draft. If your draft is just full of fat guys, offensive and defensive linemen, fat guys that nobody really knows, you probably had a much better draft than you think. I think this is one of those moments. Don't overthink it. If Joe Alt is there, I don't understand why you would not want to take somebody that I believe, from everybody I've talked to, you can plug and play. You got 10 years where you're just going to say, hey, we got this position figured out. That ultimately, the goal of the draft is to get great players. And if you've got one in front of you, why make it complicated? You're 1,000% right on this.
Fitz, in free agency next week, the Titans have a bunch of holes and they've got a bunch of money to spend, which takes me to right tackle. And I did my homework, again, going over all the database and win rates, sacks allowed, and things like that, trying to narrow down what would be right for the Titans. To me, there's 2 guys. There's Michael Owenu from the Patriots, who I think might actually be more of a guard than he is a tackle. And Jermaine Illuminor was a guy I just kept circling. You came on the show last week. You said Jermaine Illuminor sucks. But the one thing I'll say about Jermaine Illuminor is once they got Josh McDaniels out of there, he played much better. And with Bo Hardigree as the Titans quarterbacks coach, I just keep coming back to a guy who consistently plays in every game and got better throughout the course of last year and has 1,800 career snaps at right tackle. And I just don't think that there's I keep circling him. Am I an idiot?
No, here's the thing. And I realized after I said that with Illuminor last week, that was probably pretty harsh. He is somebody that has gotten better at this position year over year. But he's also somebody that the Raiders aggressively tried to replace every single year. I mean, when you think about this team and that offensive line, especially when you start talking about run blocking, was tragic last year. It was awful. And the year before, the offensive line was actually not bad with run blocking, but it was porous when it came to pass blocking. So, it's funny because so often from 2 years ago, you'd see some of the numbers and you'd say, well, why are people trashing the Raiders' offensive line? And the answer is that, the tape didn't necessarily support some of the Pro Football Focus type numbers. So I think Jermaine Illuminor is somebody that, yes, has gotten better over time. But to be clear, the Raiders right now, one of their biggest needs is right tackle. And even though right tackle is one of their biggest needs on a team that I think is going to roll out at least 3, maybe 4 new starters on the offensive line this year, even in that situation, and the Raiders have money to spend, they are still looking at it and saying, "No, we're good. We'll figure it out somewhere else." Like, I think Illuminor is one of those guys that if you get him on a value contract to bring him in, Hardigree is very familiar with him. If he's comfortable with him, I think that does speak to something. If you get him at a reasonable rate, then hey, no harm, no foul. If you go out and you make him a day one signing that's getting a big contract to come over there, that makes no sense to me.
So I do wonder your thought on this. Jason Fitz is with us because you and I like to argue about the cap. The Denver Broncos are releasing Russell Wilson, $85 million dead cap charge, and I said Raiders, the Broncos. The Broncos have said in their statement, we will be flexible in the draft and free agency, which I interpreted it as Bronco fans, we're still going to be able to spend money in free agency. Fitz, how can they take on an $85 million dead cap charge?
Yeah, and then when they're no good, they're going to say, well, the cap was part of the issue. Like, Sean Payton's going to keep moving the goalposts like he always does through this whole process to make sure that he comes out of it scot-free.
To that point, wouldn't you agree that even if like the cap is real, which I know you think, but even if that's the case, the issue with why they're going to stink is not because of the cap, it's because of all the picks that they gave away for Russell that they weren't able to draft players with.
Facts. No, look, as much as we can disagree on the salary cap, the one thing I would say here is the reason that, look, I was one of the few people that was really loud when Russell Wilson signed to the Broncos nationally that I thought that he was washed. And when Sean Payton took the job, part of the reason I said I didn't think it made any sense for Sean Payton is because you were locking into this Russell Wilson thing. And what I said a year ago on ESPN is when they cut him, the dead cap hit is going to be the reason they suddenly decimate the whole roster and they go into rebuild, which is exactly what they're doing. This is all it's just so stupid. Like, above and beyond everything else, Sean Payton had to look around and look and say, I don't think this, like, he's a smart football coach. How did he watch Russ and not expect this? I saw heard Greeny on his show a couple of days ago talking about what a joke it is that the Broncos didn't see this coming and how could they do this? Well, Greeny didn't see it coming. Like, so many people were stupid about this. I don't understand it. So the Broncos, I think, are up the creek because they've mismanaged their draft, because they've traded away picks, and because, frankly, they've got a guy coming in at coach, and that I just don't think is going to work. I don't think Sean Payton's ever going to live up to the expectations, and in 5 years, we're going to be talking about Sean Payton the same way we talked about Belichick post-Brady. Like, life's a lot easier when you got Drew Brees than when you don't, and the Broncos don't have a clear path to Drew Brees.
Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio, always a pleasure. Fitz, thank you, sir.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yep, Jason Fitz on our program. And I will say this, Sean Payton didn't want that job. He wanted the Texans job. They didn't want him. And Denver didn't want Sean Payton. Denver wanted DeMeco Ryans, and DeMeco didn't want them. And then they wanted Jim Harbaugh, and Jim didn't want them. And then they paid Payton so much money that he had to take the job. And I agree with Fitz. I don't know how you weasel your way out of those picks for Russell and the way that all went down and everything else. 615-737-1025. Speaking of all of the dead cap money, and there is a team that is shedding salary. And the cap believers are out to defend it. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and company. So the Buffalo Bills are making a bunch of cuts. And somebody on Twitter, this Ari Mirov, who's one of these aggregators, he put out there, see, the Bills are making all these cuts, and that is to prove that the salary cap is real. It's real. Here you go. He said, because a bunch of people have tagged me in this, the Bills were $40 million over the cap entering today. They've already released center Mitch Morse, safety Jordan Poyer, corner Saron Neal, and wide receiver Deontay Hardy, and they are still over the cap. So for the doubters, the salary cap is very real. And the Bills have announced they're releasing Tre'Davious White. And people are texting into the text line, and they're tweeting me, and they're saying, see. Guys, this is what we call spring cleaning. Mitch Morse was a 31-year-old center who was making, I think, $11 million a season. They didn't want to pay him anymore. There is a difference between we don't want to pay you anymore and we're doing this for the cap. The Titans weren't really saving any money when they traded Kevin Byard to the Eagles. They just didn't want to pay him anymore. Jordan Poyer is well into his 30s. Tre'Davious White over the last 2 years has played a total of 10 games. Just like how you didn't cut Taylor Lewan last year because of the cap. You cut Taylor Lewan because he was making $15 million and he was never healthy. But for every cap person out there, you're going to look to the Buffalo Bills and you're going to say, see. But if you notice that none of those players that Buffalo released, and some of these guys, I don't even know who the hell this is. Who is Saron Neal? Do we know who that is, Ian?
I don't think so.
It's like these hockey guys getting traded I've never heard of. Like that Sean Walker that got traded for a first-round pick so Colorado could dump Ryan Johansson. I've never heard of that guy. Deontay Hardy. Who the hell's that?
He was their returner. That's all I know.
I mean, I can name off the top of my head Diggs, Davis, Shakir. Like, we watched the
running
Bills
back.
enough.
Yeah, Cook.
Like, when
Kincaid.
the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, they got some.
When the Buffalo Bills have to release Dawson Knox, then that is when we'll say, oh, the cap, that's fake. That's real. Because the Buffalo Bills want Dawson Knox. The Buffalo Bills want Von Miller. The Buffalo Bills don't want Tre'Davious White anymore because he's never healthy. And for all of you cap people out there, here's what my hope is. Gentry and Estes and I were talking about this the other day. And I said, I swear I hope that the the Broncos, who just took an $85 million dead cap charge for Russell Wilson, the Broncos, the Saints, the Chargers, one of these teams that is just like, I don't know how they're going to survive this. I hope they sign one of these big-time free agents. Like, Lord, please let the Saints sign Chris Jones. Because if that happens, oh, my goodness, you might as well just turn off the radio. And I usually don't tell you to turn the show off because we love you. But, I'm going to go crazy. But the Bills cutting people that never play or that are 34 years old and have been in the league for 10 years like Jordan Poyer, every team is releasing their safeties. I saw Chicago and Washington were releasing players to clear up cap space, and they're like $100 million under. This is getting rid of guys you don't want, just like you're going to release Andre Dillard. And when you release Andre Dillard, it'll say, this move saves $4.5 million or whatever it is against the cap. But you're not releasing Andre Dillard because of the cap. You're releasing Andre Dillard because Andre Dillard sucks. That's why. And you don't want to pay Andre Dillard anymore. And Andre Dillard is due $7 million on top of the $3 million that he's guaranteed to make this year. And why would you pay Andre Dillard $7 million? He's terrible. So, Kinston in the text line. And people on Twitter and don't use his Bills when they're getting rid of people I've never even heard of as like your big example. 615-737-1025. We've got football with the draft and free agency upon us, hockey with the trade deadline on Friday, and the Predators on a 9-game point streak. We got basketball with Tennessee, might be a national championship contender, and whatnot. Who knows? Jared versus Joe is coming up next, and I am sure we will debate all of it. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. It is 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. You know what that means. Jared versus Joe. Caroline is here. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how we doing?
Outstanding. It was good to see you this morning at our office cleanup today. Joseph.
I'm still, recovering a little bit. Sniffles and coughs and such.
Well, when I heard you this morning on with Robbie and Joe, I was worried that, the plague might have gotten you. Joe Rexroad is with us. Joe, it was good to see you at office cleanup this morning.
Yeah, Caroline got attacked by the dust from a vacuum from 1973.
I did see that, and I saw Robbie wiping up the floor with like a Lysol wipe, and I'm like, why are you wiping the floor with a? And he's like, I tried to use this vacuum over here, and as I reckon I use this vacuum over here.
Robbie just does not sound like that at all.
It sprayed dust everywhere. I'll tell you what. That was kind of the conversation there.
It was like from a cartoon.
Anywho, before we get to Jared versus Joe, I did say earlier today in the program that we were going to be giving away Preds tickets, and I gave you a cue. Or I actually didn't give you the cue. I gave you the keyword. You had to remember. And now I'm giving you the cue to call. Be caller 5 right, or no. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025 who gives Ian the keyword from earlier today in the program, and you'll win a pair of tickets to see the Predators tomorrow night against the Buffalo Sabres at Bridgestone Arena. It's college night with fans from the University of Kentucky, showing their pride as part of the College Theme Night series with theme nights including a branded College and Preds hat. Tickets available at nationalpredators.com/tickets. And with that, Ian, it is time now for Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexroad. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game.
Caroline?
All right, so there was a report come out by USA Today that the Titans reportedly interested in L'Jarius Sneed, a little tag and trade from the Kansas City Chiefs. If you were the general manager of the Titans, what would you be willing to give up for L'Jarius Sneed?
Who goes first?
Jared.
Okay, so I will not be willing to give up the 38th pick for L'Jarius Sneed, and I would not be willing to deal my first or second round pick in 2025 for L'Jarius Sneed. So the only deal that I think the Chiefs might consider, because they're a cheap franchise and their F- owner loves to pinch pennies, and I guess it sounds like they're going to sign Chris Jones. The only deal that I think they might consider would be a deal of Peter Skoronski to the Chiefs for L'Jarius Sneed and Joe Thuney. So now I'm paying, I think it's $30-something million because Sneed's going to be about $20 million a year. Thuney is, I think, 16, so $36 million a year. Thuney replaces Skoronski. The Chiefs get to save $36 million a year, and they don't have to replace Thuney when his deal's up. He's 30-something years old. They've got the replacement right there in Skoronski. And I get the corner, so I get two positions filled. And that's the only deal I would do because I am not dealing the 38th pick. I'm not dealing the 7th pick, and I'm not dealing a first or second next year for L'Jarius Sneed. Anything else, and there's no deal. That's what I would do.
Well, I appreciate Jared's work on this. That's a creative. I like the idea. I've actually changed, I'd say, a little bit from this morning. We talked about it, and I like him a lot as a corner, and the Titans badly need a corner. But I'm cheaping out on this. I just ultimately don't want to give up draft capital of any real value, and then also have to pay a player what you have to pay him. So. It would have to be a collection. Yeah, I suppose some sort of a swap of players on the roster and lower picks than that, because I'm basically the same as Jared. I'm not giving up first or second. Today I was toying around with the idea of like the second, but man, this team is, the thing is, this team is not going to contend next year. And obviously this is not just a win now signing. It's a young guy who could be with you for a long time, but you just so badly need to shore up the offense to the point of keeping your quarterback safe and giving him a chance that, I can't see drafting defense that high, nor can I see trading for defense that high.
Here's what I don't disagree, or I agree with 95% of what you're saying, and I was playing around in my head, like, if you pick swapped with them where you give them 38 and they give you their second in this year's draft, would that be good enough? And I think the Chiefs will get a better offer for Sneed than pick swapping in the second round, so I don't think they would accept that. But here's the one thing I don't agree with you on. You say that the Titans are not going to be competing next season. I don't agree with that. Like competing for the Super Bowl?
I said contending. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not ruling it out. Each of the last 2 years, the crappiest team in the AFC South, and both of them were total crap houses in Jacksonville and Houston, were playing in the divisional round of the playoffs the next year. I'm not ruling that out for the Titans this year.
Did you think either of them were playoff contenders as of the end of or Super Bowl contenders as of the end of the regular season?
Probably not.
Okay, well there you go.
Houston. I mean, I didn't think that they were Super Bowl contenders when they got to the divisional round of the playoffs. But we have to try, right?
Sure. I mean, you want to be as good as you can be next year. Yes, you need to win. You can win. You can compete to be in the playoffs next year. Yes, but I'm just saying, sometimes moves like this are final piece moves or perceived final piece moves, like a Clowney, whatever, Julio, like that. Those Titans where they were then is much, much different from where they are now, and a lot of it has to do with that former GM.
Well, my problem with the Titans is that they're locked into not having choices right now. I was talking about this with Barry Trotz, how I feel like he has the choice to be able to do whatever he wants. If he wants to sell, Carrier because somebody offers him a first-round pick for it, he can do that. If he wants to not do anything except, retain a contract, he can do that. If he wants to buy, I guess he can do it. The Titans have to take a left tackle at 7. They have to take a receiver at 38. And they have to go get a center, a right tackle, and a corner in free agency. And it's I want choices. I want the Titans to be able to do what they want to do, and instead they back themselves in all these corners, and it frustrates me.
Jared, what was your trade package?
It was Skoronski for Sneed, I guess the right to Sneed, and Joe Thuney.
Would you trade Burks for L'Jarius Sneed?
I think that they would get a better offer than that. So, I think
Burks in a fourth.
What do you think, Burks? What do you think, if you were to just take Burks to the league and you were to, ask the league what they would want in return for Burks, what do you think you would get?
6.
A fifth.
Okay. So now let's think about it like this. If we're going to say that he's a fifth or a sixth, surely the Chiefs are going to get offered a second or a third round pick for L'Jarius Sneed.
Probably.
Probably so.
So
did you fall in love with the idea of Treylon Burks for a wide receiver needy team?
But again, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm thinking to myself, I can trade L'Jarius Sneed and use that pick on Ladd McConkey or Xavier Legette.
I hear it.
You know what I mean?
A trade that usually makes sense, obvious sense for one side, doesn't make sense for the other.
Well, that's
and
all
Treylon Burks in a fourth for L'Jarius Sneed makes way too much sense for the Titans.
It's all those years of text messages. They need to trade Duchesne and Joe Hansen. Yeah, the guys that you don't want, other teams don't want either. Case in point today, the Avalanche trading a first-round pick to get rid of Joe Hansen.
That's some tape.
Yeah. What's next?
All right, Joe, you go first. There is a lot that Barry Trotz can do at the trade deadline. He can stand pat, he can buy, he can sell, you can finagle all sorts of other teams that are just trying to dump contracts, dump salary. So there's a lot that he can do. What should Barry Trotz do?
Well, certainly if he can use that retention spot, absolutely. I think that's a gimme. If you use that cap space to your advantage, weaponize it, get a pick, great. So that's, I don't see how anybody could disagree with that. There's no downside.
Yeah.
But I don't think, well, look, there's a few things I would say. One is, I'm still right here with this team. Great run, fantastic. It's so much fun. And obviously, Barry Trotz has been underwhelmed by what people have been calling him and offering him for UC Saros. If someone, and I don't know who it would be, we did speculate today, Tom Fitzgerald, is the chopping block next for him? Does he need to throw a Hail Mary, get a goalie, somehow try to get into the playoffs and, or at least say, hey, I got us our goalie of the future? I mean, that's probably the most likely. If Trotz gets a call and it's an offer of what he was envisioning before all this stuff happened, then you make the deal. I'm sorry, but you make the deal. And the room may be upset and all that stuff, but you have to get the absolute most you can get out of one of these goalies. You're going to get certainly more right now for Saros. And I don't think it will be as good in the summer as it could be. Again, if you have a team in that situation, I don't envision a team being there or giving him that offer. But if they do, I don't think you hesitate 1 second. Other than that, I'm not big on buying or renting, bringing in a forward. Look, this team's been a great story. They've got good chemistry. I think you keep rolling with that. You don't worry about adding. And then, if something comes along good for a Carrier or somebody like that, then I think you make that deal too. I know Carrier Lausanne has been good, but I think unless you're resolved that Alex Carrier has to be long-term part of this team, then I think you make that deal too.
Okay, so I think I agree with Joe, and Barry's already said it. He's going to retain a salary, so they're going to get a pick as part of being a third member of a trade that doesn't really involve them, other than the salary thing. They're going to do it. They're going to get that pick, and that's great. Here's my thing. Barry Trotz made this very clear yesterday, which is that if there is a trade that benefits the long-term Nashville Predators trade that is just crazy, he's got to do it, he's going to do it. So if somebody calls and offers a first-round pick, and we've seen stupid trades at the trade deadline, like Ryan Hartman and Lausanne, like we've seen them. And so if Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat, or as Joe wrote at The Athletic, Ryan Johansson for Seth Jones is a deadline deal.
Right.
By the way, today, Joe,
the new year, buddy.
That's a deadline deal. What happened today? What happened on January 6th of 2016 is not a deadline deal.
No, according to you, it's got to be an hour away from the deadline.
According to me, it's got to be within like 2 weeks of the deadline. January
2 months away from
6th.
the deadline is dramatic.
January 6th, Joe. Unbelievable. But we've seen stupid trades at the deadline all the time. So if somebody wants to do something stupid, I think Barry said on the show yesterday, he'll take advantage of that person wanting to do something stupid. I don't think Barry's going to do something stupid. And I think Barry's, I thought what I loved yesterday hearing from Barry Trotz was how measured he was about if I'm looking to go buy something on the market, I have to ask myself, does this rental player give me a better opportunity than going down to Milwaukee and getting Parsonen, or going down to Milwaukee and getting Tomasino, or going down to Milwaukee and getting Spencer Stasny? And I think in most cases the answer is no. I don't believe in rentals. I don't believe in it. There's 1,000 of them every year, and they never freaking make a difference, ever. And so whoever gets Jake Gensel, their fan base will say, we're going for it, and it will not play a factor at all as to whether or not they're going to win the cup or not. I do not believe that. So I hate them. So, no on that, but I don't think he's going to do that, so I'm not worried about it. I think he's in the best spot because the Predators are exceeding expectations. So whatever they end up doing, like Barry gets the benefit of the doubt so he can be patient, and if somebody wants to do it, he can take advantage of it, and if not, he can stand pat, and I think we'll all say, hey, a smart idea, didn't mortgage the future, there he goes. I love it. I don't even know what the question was, but that's my answer.
Thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add.
Hey, Joe, I'm just so right that Joe just can't,
I think we pretty much agree. Do we not agree? I don't have a real disagreement with you.
So Adam Vigan says that a deadline deal is within a calendar month of the actual trade deadline.
Yeah, I just responded. I said, look, I went 2 months and I'm not apologizing. By the way, Mark Stone was a pretty good Stasny, right? Recently, that worked out real well. So Mark Stone worked out amazingly well for the Golden Knights. So it can work.
But that worked out like 3 years after they made the trade. That was a 19 trade.
I'm not going to get you a Christmas present. I got you a birthday present for your birthday in September.
Maybe because my Christmas and my birthday are a week apart, maybe that's my whole thing, right? Like, I feel like the timeline should be bigger.
Yeah, but January and March are not a week apart.
I mean, they're both in the same calendar year. It's fine.
January and December are in the same calendar year, Joe.
Unbelievable.
It's after the calendar flips. During the season. It's the spirit of the deal was it was a deadline deal.
It wasn't. You weren't even here when it happened, and I can tell you the spirit of the deal was not that, because I was here.
I think at that time I was very close to, I was interviewing with the Tennesseans, so that counts as me being here.
No, it does not. More Jared versus Joe to continue next. Speaking, by the way, of the trade deadline, Barry Trotz is expected to join the Stillman and Company program on Friday after the deadline. So we are expected to be at Bridgestone Arena both tomorrow for the game and Friday, and Barry will come on with us on Friday after the deadline. That is the expectation. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love those guys. Hiller takes great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. And when you watch a Preds game, you see that Hiller logo right there, right in the center of the ice, because they're proud supporters of the Nashville Predators. And I am proud to tell you about this month, because this month is Happy's Golden Ticket Sweepstakes at Hiller. Enter to win at HillerGoldenTicket.com. All you have to do is enter your email, and you're automatically entered to win. Prizes include a $5,000 Hiller gift card, a $1,000 Hiller gift card, and one of 10 Happy Hiller Club memberships. Take advantage of zero-interest financing for 12 months on select new HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, and whole home generators. Do not miss out. Enter to win now. That's HillerGoldenTicket.com. Okay, Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors in Nashville. Before we get into this, Elliot Friedman just tweeted out that the Vegas Golden Knights have entered the Noah Hannafin conversation. Is that the one team in the league that doesn't have to play with the salary cap? This is turning into the NFL.
Uh-oh. It's fake in hockey too, Jared. I think that should be your whole show tomorrow.
I'm not there yet, but if the Vegas Golden Knights, it's like the Vegas Golden Knights are about to acquire freaking Connor McDavid and fit him under the cap. Whatever. Unbelievable.
How much money do they have on long-term IR?
I don't know.
I think Stone was like $9.5 million. So.
And they don't have. How do they do this? They don't have any picks. They don't have any prospects anymore. They traded them all.
Vingan says they are not breaking the rules. So just for your information.
Los Angeles Rams of the NHL.
Unbelievable. Caroline, go.
All right, Jared, you go first. How far do the Tennessee Vols need to go in the NCAA tournament to call this season a success?
They can only lose in orange uniforms until the Final Four. If they lose in the white uniform, which is the home uniform, now it's kind of gotten fakakta out there with basketball because teams wear like road uniforms at home now, and I can't keep up with it anymore. But you know what I mean. In the NCAA tournament, the white uniform is the home uniform. They cannot lose in the home uniform. That's I have no idea, who's better between them or UConn or them or Arizona or them or Houston or whatever. But if they're going to be a 2 seed, they lose in the Elite Eight to a good team. I get it. It happens. But what they can't do is they can't be a 2 seed, win the first game against Canisius, and then turn around and get beat by Texas Tech or some crap bum,
They so would lose to Texas Tech.
That's what I'm talking about. No, not with the white Michael Jordan on their team, which is what Dalton Connect is. He's been promoted from Larry Bird to the white Michael Jordan. And so, no, this year, this team feels different. They play defense. They play team ball. They got a superstar. I love this time of year. I love picking on Rick Barnes. But if they lose in the white uniforms, it is 100% his fault, and I will never shut up about that or him ever again.
Yeah, the only issue I would take with that, I generally agree. The only issue I'd take with that is I don't know if they're a 1 or 2. If they're a 2 and, they have a Kansas in the Sweet 16, Duke and Iowa State, that's basically a toss-up game. But I'd basically agree that they need to make the Elite Eight. Tennessee has made the Elite Eight one time in its history, which was 14 years ago under Bruce Pearl. And, of course, they've never made the Final Four. I could almost make the case that, especially if they do get the first number 1 seed in school history. If they win tonight, if they win both of these games this week, South Carolina, Kentucky, I think they're going to get the 1. I think even if they win one of these and do some damage in the SEC tournament, they have a really good chance. If you get the first 1 seed in school history, I think it's going to be really hard for Tennessee fans to accept anything but a Final Four. But, if you lose to a great 2, whatever, North Carolina, Marquette, whoever it may be on the 2 line, Arizona, in a great Elite Eight game, and they have an SEC championship, you still have to also put the context of the history of the program, in there. And
No.
Sure you do.
No.
Sure you do. Jared, North Carolina and Duke don't give a crap about Elite Eights. Tennessee has one ever. So if they get to an Elite Eight, play a great game, lose that, heartbreak. I still would be hard-pressed to not call it a successful season, but I also would be hard-pressed to call it a successful season if they don't at least get to that Elite Eight level.
So I again, just like Joe's going to say, I agree with 95% of that. But when I say the white uniforms, what I really mean is I don't mean if they get matched up in Elite Eight against a good team, it's a 1 versus a 2, and it's Houston who's the 2 and Dallas, and it's a hard-fought, game, and they lose by 3, that's one thing. But what I'm talking about is what everybody knows what I'm talking about, which is the Rick Barnes special. This team should be vaccinated against the Rick Barnes special because they've got a post player in Adu, who I think is a defensive anchor, Jemai Meshack, who's awesome guarding the ball on the perimeter, and again, the white Michael Jordan, Dalton Connect. Like, I'm sorry, there is no acceptable losing to Scarbini State. It's not acceptable this year, even if FAU's good and everybody says
Who said it was?
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. But the idea of the program, like, oh, well, we need to remember where this program comes from. Caroline, this is not St. Louis. Like, this, we want to win.
Chill.
We do not want to almost win. This year, it's time to win because they'll never have a player as good as Dalton Connect ever again.
Ever again. Okay.
How many
Tennessee
players
could never?
How many players get called the white Michael Jordan?
Well, you're the only person using that dumb term, but Jared.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard
really,
that anywhere else.
Yeah,
so he's being
Abdul-Jabbar,
called
if
it
you
by
will.
one person, me.
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a great nickname.
That
I've
is
heard,
hilarious.
Like Honky Kong is something that Vol Twitter has.
Okay, I don't know how I feel
has
about
adopted.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, well,
Don't
I guess
ask.
it's a Donkey Kong play. I guess. I mean, but
I don't like
yeah,
it.
that's yeah, but that's a very stupid statement, Jared. That that they'll never have a player this good. I mean, he's a potential lottery pick. Okay, he's a potential lottery pick, like he's a first round pick. The Vols could have a top 5 pick at some point. It is absolutely possible. The idea that they could never have anybody as good as Dalton Connect is pretty ridiculous.
Last one quickly, Caroline.
All right, so Nashville SC hosts Lionel Messi and Inter Miami tomorrow for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Nashville SC has been charging its season ticket holders up to 5 times the normal ticket prices. That good or bad business for some of your most loyal customers?
Who goes first?
Joe.
Well, I think it's realistic. And the thing is, 5 times.
Go ahead, patronize.
prices.
Go ahead, patronize the billionaires, Joe.
No, but see, it sounds terrible. 5 times. Oh my gosh. Right. So if we're talking about the Tennessee Titans, which single game tickets are whatever they are, $75, right, or whatever. Okay, that's outrageous. If they're 20, okay, so it's an uptick of $80, which I'm not sneezing at. It's not nothing, but I think it's good to have again the proper context around things. If it's if your ticket is $5 and 10 times the price, oh my God, it's $50. It's a $45 increase. Look. I
have
think
heard that it's half the price of a full season ticket package for one ticket.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, that's the power of Messi. I mean, it is, and so I think that's a big part of. I mean, everything about him coming into this league is. I mean, all these clubs expected to have these, these moments of benefiting from it. So I understand people being upset with it. I'm not saying. Yay, thumbs up, deal with it. And I don't know, everybody's yelling about like the supporters section now. I don't even know what that's about.
I saw the supporters section release a statement, and then the team released a statement in response to the statement that the supporters section released. And guess what? In both cases, it was too much for me to care to read.
Yeah, but I mean, look. So what was the question, Caroline?
Is that good or bad business? Like, is it fair for them to do that, or do you think that's bad business?
Yeah, it's not bad business. I mean, look, the bottom line is people are going to complain about it. It's going to be talked about on these shows. It's going to, and it becomes a big thing. But I think it's honestly bad business to not capitalize on something like this. I mean, you're going to have a finite number of opportunities here. So,
Joe, making sure that John Ingram doesn't miss a meal over there.
Well, you're asking if it's bad business. I don't think it's bad business. I'm sorry.
So let me say this. First off, I think John Ingram's a good man.
Pisses people off, and I get that.
Throw that out there. But here's what I would say. If you're a Nashville SC fan, there are 2 things I would say. First and foremost, the first thing is I love how Caroline, remember when we got all that heat for going crazy about those concession prices? And
yeah, $17 for chicken fingers.
Yeah, and their defense was, well, our tickets are so cheap, so that's why we charge so much for concessions. It's like, au contraire, mon frère. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I mean, what this really means, like, look, it's NashvilleSC.com. It's not .org. It's not .gov. They are not a nonprofit. They are a for-profit business, and they can do whatever they want to do. But this is all I would say is what it proves is that if they could stick it to you, they would stick it to you. Like that's just how I feel. Like if they could charge you instead of $13 or whatever it is for like season tickets, because again, this whole like the idea that the tickets are so cheap for season tickets is it's almost like the way that it sounds, the way that people when they got mad at me. I'm not talking about when Nashville SC got mad at me, but I'm talking about when the fans got mad at me. The argument the fans made was that, hey, Nashville SC takes care of us with these cheap ticket prices. But I kind of feel like the only reason they do that is because that's how they get people to buy tickets. And I remember all the people that were getting mad at me being like, we have 30,000 season tickets holders, Jared. It's like, yeah, because you charge like $20 for them. And see, this is, to me, that becomes personal. Okay. But, again, that's just how I feel.
Okay. So, again, bad business is the question. Caroline's asking if it's bad business. If it's bad business, they're going to pay for this in a business sense. Do you believe they will?
I think they might. I think there might be some ticket holders who, I think it was Gentry that wrote a column or said something, or I can't remember. I do think it was Gentry that said, like, if there are a bunch of empty seats there on Thursday night, that's going to be a real bad look for them.
Do you think there will be?
I have no idea.
There will not be. And
are you going?
They have a good club. Am I going? No, I'm going to the Preds. But I mean, the Preds are, they're in one right now. But if they have a good club and they continue to, maybe they improve some things, even like a little parking, maybe.
Hold on, Joe. We have somebody text into the text line and says it's Lionel Messi, not Carlos Messi, Corey Curtis. Did Corey Curtis call him Carlos Messi?
I don't know.
That is so bad. He's only the number one superstar in sports in the world.
Did Corey? We need to get to the bottom of this. Did Corey Curtis call him Carlos Messi?
We need Corey on the line. Get Corey on.
Oh, my God. And he might not have called him.
Oh, man. Jared is currently doubled over laughing. Tears coming down his face.
He may not have even called him that. And we're like laughing at him like he's some horrible sports fan. All right, Caroline, who wins this week?
Not
Corey Curtis.
Yeah, I'm not Carlos, that's for sure. I disagree with Joe. I think it's bad business. Like you are going to come at your most loyal customers when, let's be honest, we're not talking about the Tennessee Titans in the NFL here. Like we're talking about a new team that doesn't have a ton of fans. I think it's bad business to nickel and dime your season ticket holder. So I disagree. But Joe wins because white Michael Jordan is absurd.
Carlos Connect, the white Michael
Jordan. Is this Carlos Barnes' year?
Good choice.
Carlos versus Carlos is presented by Bella Windows. It's probably not even that funny. Oh, thank you, guys. We continue. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, we have some breaking news on the program. I have reached out to Corey Curtis during the break, Ian. So again, Corey Curtis was accused in the text line of calling Lionel Messi Carlos Messi.
When did he do that? On the morning show? Robbie, I guess he's on Robbie and Rex Road on Mondays.
I don't know. So I called Corey during the break, and I said, did you call Messi Carlos Messi? And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, somebody texted into the text line and said that you said Carlos Messi. And I laughed for about 10 minutes straight. And then after I laughed about it for 10 minutes straight, I then came to the realization that you may not have even said that. And we're laughing about you screwing up the greatest sports, whatever. And Corey checked his scripts. He's like, did I say it on the news? Let me check the scripts. And he checked the scripts. And the scripts said no. That he said Lionel Messi the whole time. And so now I told Corey at the end, and I said, Corey, I'm going to be totally honest with you. You're probably going to have a lot of people that are going to come up to you over the next couple of days and make some kind of joke about Carlos Messi.
Yeah, or Carlos Curtis.
And I hate to say it.
His new nickname, Carlos Curtis.
But them's the breaks. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Very often, people say, Jared, you never admit that you are wrong, even though there are so many times that I have admitted being wrong. But there is something that while I'm not going to take full responsibility of being wrong for, I do think it is worth recognizing that my staunch opposition is being rescinded. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We got some insider on insider crime at the NHL level. Elliot Friedman, I guess, went on TV today and right now and just said that Vegas is in the mix for Noah Hannafin, that's breaking news. And then Darren Dreger tweeted out and said, we've been saying that all along. So the trade deadline brings out the insiders, I guess, are going after one another. We'll keep our eyes on that. I do have a quick Preds thought because Smashville Live is coming up following us at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. Alexander Carrier, I don't know how they pronounce his last name nowadays. It changes every week. But Alexander Carrier and Jeremy Lazan are going to be the special Smashville Live guests along with, is it Max and Hal or Max and Jay?
I believe it's probably Max and Hal. It was Max and Jay last week, so I think they usually go oppo.
Okay, so it'll probably be Max and Hal out there at Smashville Live. Now, if you guys remember, I went crazy when they traded a second-round pick for Jeremy Lazan. And I went crazy watching him play in that playoff series against Colorado. And I went crazy when they gave him a contract extension. And I've been hard on Carrier, too. They played some really, really good hockey. And it's maybe taken me 2 years, 3 years, however the hell long it's been. It's taken me a couple of years to come around. And actually, I like those two on the ice together. And when I watch them play, now they didn't have their best game last night, but when I watch them play, those two, they hit and they skate, and I like what I'm seeing. I really do. And I was so critical of them and so critical of David Poyle, for the reliance on them. So on one hand, I have to almost rescind my anger over the years towards those two because they're playing some great hockey. Lazan drew a penalty the other night skating around the net. I mean, he'll hit anybody. And those two have played well together, and I got to give them credit. But maybe it's the coaching change that I begged for that everybody told me, no, Jared. John Hines is a great coach. Maybe that's what sparked it to get these players to play better. So I'll rescind one, and I'll double down on the other. Dylan in Antioch is up next here on the program. Thank you for waiting. As long as you have, Dylan, go ahead.
What's up, Jared? Yeah, I'll get out quick. So I don't understand why people are so freaked out about these ticket prices. About 2 hours ago, I went on Vivid Seats and bought one seat behind the goal in the supporters section for $111.82. That does not seem terrible considering last August it was like $600 to $1,000. So that seems like a good price to me. I mean, he's a legendary player. It's like seeing Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan. So I don't get why everyone's so freaked out about these prices. You can find tickets for like $80. So
here's the reason why I think people are upset about it, Dylan. And I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Here's why I think that, because they're used to paying something. It's why I don't like that I can't get the Predators on YouTube TV when I could get the Bally Sports Plus, but I don't want to. Because my entire life, I've had cable, and with cable, I've had the Braves and the Predators and the Grizzlies, and I've had it all my entire life. And now all of a sudden I got cable, and it's like, oh, no, we don't have the games. And it's like, what are we talking about here? Like, I don't want to pay the Bally Sports extra for that. I don't like paying for it. When in reality, my cable bill was probably higher than what Bally Sports Plus and YouTube TV combined would be when I had that channel. And I wasn't mad at what I was paying then for that channel. But the reality is that I'm used to not paying for that extra, so I don't want to pay extra. So when it comes to the fans being upset about why they'd have to pay extra for the Messi game, it's because they're not used to paying extra, so they don't want to pay extra. And I understand. Like, that's something. I remember when they launched all these streaming services, right? And they launched a streaming service called CNN Plus. And I thought to myself, what idiot signs up for CNN Plus? Now, this is not a knock on CNN. But, like, I get ESPN Plus. If you want the extra games, you have to subscribe. I get, a plus where there's like an actual tangible thing that you don't get with the other. What's CNN Plus? It's just more CNN, right? It's like I'm sitting on my couch watching CNN, And what I'm really thinking, if I'm a CNN Plus person, what I'm really sitting there thinking is, like, do I want to watch more? This CNN is good, but, can I get some more CNN? Nobody's thinking that. So nobody's going to go pay extra for more CNN. And that's my point here when it comes to the ticket prices, where you're like, dude, I'm getting to go watch an MLS game for $100 or whatever it was Dylan said it was to watch the greatest player in the world. Why are people upset about it? And it's because they're paying for something that they don't want to pay for. And I get it. They're used to paying a certain price, and they feel like their team is taking it out on them in order to make a buck. And the reason that they feel that way is because it's true. So that's kind of, that's why. Carrier and Lazan are up next with Max and I think Hal. Max and Hal from Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. Enjoy that. Smashville Live. Preds are on a heater. Trade deadline's coming up. Big one tomorrow. We'll be at Bridgestone Arena. Stillman and Company. Smashville Live's next. We'll see you tomorrow, too.